probably should have warned you about this. Official intro video.
I could tell you one time, you don't want it with us. I could tell you one time, that we'll fuck you up. I could tell you one time, go grab your guns. I'll tell you one time, this day belongs to us.
Do not adjust your set. And hello, and welcome to the War Room. And I hope you liked that. That is just a little video project that I've been working on. This is the War Room. This is day 177, and that was me making an attempt of yet another video edit type thing, because the first one I had done was for Hit or Miss. The other one was for the New Watch podcast, and now I've got one for myself. And truth be told, I will be making a new one for the New Watch podcast just so he can have a little bit of variety. And I'm getting kind of bored of looking at Olivia Wilde and hot pants. I know it sounds weird, but if you see who I'm going to replace her with, you'll totally understand. Anyway, so after last week's, well, let me get everyone in here first. I guess that'd be more kosher. Let me pull everyone in. So let me put this in this view here. I will bring in Mikhail Nightstrike, also known as Nightstrike, and Scottish Naya, which is Scott P79, and our West Coast contingent, who is technically behind enemy lines, although he did have something very cool happen today by pure happenstance and our repeated insistence. So this is yes, and this is Jaime Zaporizhzhia, who actually is the subject of tonight's episode. So let me just start off with something sort of off topic.
Oh, please, by all means.
You probably noticed that I haven't done any videos for the last 2 weeks, and
It may have.
this week especially, because I had 2 puppies die last weekend, and that has never happened before, and I hope it never happens again. But it is absolutely gut-wrenching to go through, because you're sitting there watching it happen, and there's nothing you can do.
And you like those puppies.
And I like those puppies. And now I started with 3, and now I only have 1. And I had to bury one Saturday night, and I had to bury another one Monday morning. And I gotta tell you, it's left an impression on me. Like, I've put down my animals when they're dying of old age or cancer, but when they're 7 weeks old, it hits you way different. And I'm just going to remind people that parvo, I think is what it was, is incredibly devastating to puppies. And the thing that hurt the most is they were 48 hours away from going to get their vaccines. So it stung extra hard this time. But I have one surviving female, and she does go in this Monday, and because she had survived, she didn't show any symptoms. I turned her into the little girl puppy in the bubble. So she has lived in my room here that I set up as a clean room, and she was not allowed to go anywhere else. Like, nobody was allowed in here except her mother and her sister and her technically grandmother. All the females sleep in my room, so I had checked them all out one at a time, and that puppy has lived in this room for a week. I just wasn't going to chance it.
How are the
And
fleas?
I got it under control here.
Look,
Out in the living room, and the rest of the house, in the backyard and everything, because of my neighbors, it's still crap. So there's nothing I can do about
spray.
that. Well, I have. I've done preventative sprays in my yard. I've even hung the hose over the top of the fence line to get my neighbors' yards, and it's just a fruitless effort because two of my neighbors are irresponsible with their pets, and we have, I think, 7 or 8 feral cats in the neighborhood within a block of my house. And we also have transient animals like squirrels and possums and raccoons and just stuff. So the only way I would be able to contain it is if I burn down all my neighbors' yards and all their houses around me and set up drones with motion sensors and machine guns to kill anything that walks across my yard, which obviously is unreasonable. So,
Right.
all that aside, let me do a couple of announcements. Well, actually, let me finish my story. A very lovely young lady is coming by Monday after work, and she's going to pick up her dog, who is named Chloe. And Chloe has been an absolute joy to raise, and she's a handful. And yes, I will probably miss her when she leaves, because I always do. Even though I try not to get attached, you can't help it. But she will be moving on, and every time that I adopt out my dogs, it's the same story every time. It's me going, I give a commencement speech to the dogs, right? It's like, oh, you're about to embark on a wonderful journey, and I hope you live long and happy and healthy lives with tail wags and treats and belly rubs and all that stuff. Every time I've done that in 4 litters, that's what I've done. It's just something I do with each puppy because when I know the owners are coming, I give them a bath, like I hand wash them and I towel dry them and hair dry them and spray like perfume on them and just everything. And in that time, it's like a one-on-one conversation with each one. And I know it sounds overkill in a way, maybe, much, but it's my way of saying goodbye to them because I'll never see them again. But this one's going to be different because this one is literally, she's the lucky one. And it's, I hope you have a long and wonderful life because now you need to fulfill the lives of your brother and your sister who didn't make it. And it's like, if you could live 3 times longer, I hope you do. That kind of thing. Because I can't describe to you what it was like. But the first one that died was in my hands. And what she did right before she passed, I'll never forget. And I'm not gonna bore you with the details, but it happened and it haunts me. And I sat there and I held her and I stroked her back and I tried mouth to snout for like 40 minutes, and then I noticed like she was getting stiff. That's how quick it set in, and I just thought, there's nothing else I can do. So anyway, I don't want to depress you guys with that. It's just that's what my week started off with this week, and I didn't think I was going to be recording shit, right? Like I didn't have penny arcades lined up. I didn't have kicking it old schools lined up. There was nothing. But I talked to a lot of you guys in my panel and on the chat, and I'm grateful that you were all patient with me dealing with this. Things are fine. I haven't had a beer in like 2 weeks either, which is really strange. And trust me, I want one, but I haven't had
Well,
one.
I feel for you. Sean, because I had a no, not with my puppies, but with a cow that I had to put down.
I remember.
Yeah.
She was very
So-
young, and she got pregnant earlier than she needed to. I remember that.
So yeah, it was hard to dispatch the mother and the calf.
That story you told me about how you did that, that's, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Deal.
So
But, not to drag down the show and the chat and everything, let's talk about something slightly happy. And that is, for the past 8 weeks, for the past 12 weeks, after I had waited months to get my hands on an RPK, Scott got one shortly after, and then for the next 8 weeks, we checked PSA's listings religiously, day after day after day, because they don't announce when they have them. You just have to refresh the page at a certain hour of the day. For me, it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. And I was getting used to seeing this blue button that says notify me when in stock. And I got tired of looking at that. But today, out of sheer happenstance, I'm sitting at work and I'm like, well, let me just check because I'm here. And I hit the button and my eyes played a trick on me because the blue button was gone. A bright red-assed, like a red-assed monkey red-ass, that color red button was there. And it said add to cart. And the first words out of my mouth, Scott heard it, was like, oh shit, where's Jaime? Is he here? And he's like, yes. I'm like, go to PSA right now.
No. The first words out of my mouth were, "It's in stock."
Well, yeah, but that was after I was like, dude, it's red button. So
yeah, but I knew
spent,
exactly what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. We spent like the next hour just browbeating him. We're like, get it. And he's like, let me call him. I'm like, what are you going to call him for? California compliance. Needless to say, a happy ending is in the works for his situation. So hopefully within a month.
cross my fingers.
Yeah, hopefully within a month, you will be part of Team RPK.
Can I beat the Chanka?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, we have to. Well, now we're gonna have to think of a new name for it. I'm thinking Carlito.
El Chapo.
No, he named his horse that. See, I had a friend who raised pigs, and he named his pig El Chapo. And I was like, why? And he goes, Pork Chapo. And I'm like, oh, oh, okay.
It's like when I named the one of the pigs Putin.
Putin.
Everyone thought it was a
Putin.
joke until they hear the oink oink oink.
Yep. Kind of looks the same too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
same blue eye.
Let's see. Let's talk about acquisitions because a few things have happened. I'm not into bayonets. Let me just get this out of the way now. I'm not into bayonets. But
Mhm.
I had purchased a Type 38 Sensei's school rifle, essentially. And if you don't know what that is, it's an Arisaka rifle. It was taken out of military service, and it was given to the... In my particular case, my rifle was taken out of service, inspected, and given to the Kokura Arsenal, what do you call it? Master Gunsmith? Instructor? Armorer, thank you. Master Armorer. Because not only does it have a Sensei logo on the receiver, it has his name in a kanji on the underside of it. And I thought, ooh, that's cool. Like the guy's actual name is engraved on the side of the receiver underneath the stock line. I thought, wow, that's really cool. So I got that, and it's unlike a lot of trainer rifles, because most training rifles have cast receivers, pot metal receivers, just to give students the opportunity to take them apart and putting them back together, whatever. This is a legitimate rifle taken out of service. Rifling's good, chamber's good. I have shot it, so it didn't blow up in my face. I bought the first bayonet for any of my guns for that, because one came up and the price was too good to pass up. So I bought a matching bayonet for it, stuck it on the rifle, and I thought, huh, maybe that's why he gets them. because it actually looks kind of neat on the wall with it. Fast forward a couple of months, and I purchased a Bakelite handled Romanian bayonet for an AKM. And I am happy to say that it arrived in good shape. It had a mint condition frog. This thing was an unissued bayonet, and it had a lanyard built between there's like a hole in the side of the Bakelite grips. So in the very back there's a leather loop with a metal clasp, and then it's tied to the front of the pommel. So you can actually stick your hand underneath it, and then the lanyard goes over the top of your knuckles. And I thought, okay, that's cool. And then I felt like a complete idiot because apparently everybody but me knew what the hole in the blade was for. Because when I first took it out of the sheath, the frog, I looked at it and I'm like, what's this stud doing down here? I grabbed it and I tried to twist it and I'm like, oh no, that's one piece. And then I thought, this looks like that fits in the hole.
It does.
Just as I said that, like Scott and Mike here, they browbeat me. They were like, you idiot. Of course that's what that's for. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you really don't know about this? I'm like, no, explain. And he's like, factory wire cutter. And I'm like, oh. So I put it together and I started playing with it. I'm like, what kind of wire would you cut with this? And again, they were like, you idiot. And they were like, barbed wire. I'm like, oh.
Because in war, barbed wire is all they use.
Yes. Well, phone cable, but whatever. Anyway, point is, well, I guess modern war, no phone cable.
No phone cable in modern war.
I am happy to say that a Romanian bayonet fits perfectly on PSA's AKs. So,
Of course it would.
of course. So,
What was the bayonet called, Sean?
Romanian bayonet. I mean,
That's it? Not here?
it doesn't have a fancy name or anything. It's just Romanian. When I bought it, it said Romanian unissued bayonet, and it was like
Does it give you the year?
1960 something, I think.
Oh, okay.
I didn't, honestly, like I said, I'm not versed in bayonets. I took it out of the box that Larry shipped it in, unwrapped it, wiped all the cosmoline off the barrel, which took forever, and just function checked it, clipped it on the rifle, put the rifle back on the wall, and haven't looked at it since. Honestly, I'm looking at it right now. I'm just like, it's cool, but I don't sit there and go over bayonets with a fine-tooth comb because it's only my second one.
It's not as cool as having a short sword on a long
what?
gun. Short sword.
Do they have those for AKs?
Basically, no.
Okay.
Old guns.
Where'd you get yours?
I bought it
Because
from...
you look at most of the old bayonets and they're like 1.5 2 feet long.
Yeah,
So-
the one on my Type 38 has like a 18-inch blade on it. It's huge.
Yeah, well, case in point, I've got a 1903 bayonet that goes on my M1 Garand, and you see how it looks like a spear with it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
During World War II, they cut those blades down by like half,
Yeah.
and you resharpen them and use them for the M1 Garands only.
Mm. So now, after that, I had no plans to buy... Let me just preface this. I had no plans to buy any guns this year. Because after after SHOT Show, I was like, meh, right? And what did I do? I bought my AKP. I bought RPK. I bought a GF4 AK from PSA. I bought... What else did I buy?
I happen to remember me and Scott hounding you and letting you know every time that RPK popped up for sale.
Yeah, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
I got it.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually.
How did I forget? I bought an Anaconda and a Python. How the hell did I forget that? And then after I thought I was all done, my dumbass decided to go look at the listings of the guy I bought the bayonet from, and he had everything that I couldn't afford at the time.
That was your first mistake.
That was my first mistake, because then that led me to go to Collector's Firearms, which, if you go to their website, everything's very expensive. But if you go to their gun broker listings, they sometimes put their fixer-uppers in there. And for some of you who watch my This Old Get series, uh, one of them was the M38 Swedish Mauser. I got that from collectors for 200 bucks, and I got less than $100 in it. And you saw the episode, how nice it cleaned up, and I took it back over to them, and they offered me 900 bucks. And I thought, cool. Like, I don't sell it back to them. I just do it to see what my labor is worth based on what they want to offer me. So that's kind of a good feeling, you know? When I bought my Dutch Beaumont Vitali, same thing. I paid $710 for it, which is kind of on the high side for one of those. But what I got was immaculate. And I cleaned it up and, you know, restored the finish on the barrel and the bolt and everything. And then took it up to them, and they offered me $2,800. I'm like, holy crap. So that was cool. So anyway, went to collectors, not expecting to find anything, and goddamn K31 is staring at me in the face. And for those of you who don't know, I have wanted a K31 Swiss rifle for probably 8 years. And I kept finding a reason not to buy one when they were cheap. And then when I was ready to buy one, couldn't afford it. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, there's a K31, they call it a parts gun, sitting on Gunbroker with $105 on it. And I'm like, huh. So I watched it, and then I tried to snipe it, and then that turned into a bidding war. But I won. Saturday morning. Oh, that's the worst part of this story. Saturday morning, the auction was supposed to end at 7:59 a.m. I hadn't been getting sleep. I still managed to get up because I was going to check the auction. My Saturday started with me in a bid war with the guy. I won the rifle for $305 at 9 a.m. That's how long it kept going back and forth. Then the dog got sick. Then she died later that day. So
Then
like
the other one.
then that one faded between Saturday to Sunday night into Monday morning. That was my weekend. Like my moment of joy with this K31 turned into absolute nightmare because of two dogs. And then Monday I had to go square up with collectors. So like all this crap happened. I just buried a dog in the morning on Monday. So I'm dead tired. Went to work the whole day, left work, drove 40 minutes to collectors, another 40 minutes through paperwork, and then another 40 minutes home, and it's like almost 8 o'clock on a Monday night, and I got the rifle. So anyway, my K31, good stock, great barrel and receiver, good front sight, good rear sight, good trigger guard, good trigger, good butt plate, good sling swivels. Missing front action or front magwell screw, not a big deal. Found it, got it on the way. Magazine, found it, got it on the way. Here's the part that hurts. I need a bolt. And once upon a time, you can jump on the internet and buy a K31 bolt for 135 bucks, complete.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unicorn teeth, gone. Nobody's got one. So if any of you out there have a K31 bolt or know where I can get one, leave a comment or come to my Discord, leave me a PM. I'll buy it because mine is missing the firing pin, the spring, the decocker ring, which is also the cocking piece, and the rear cap that holds it all together. I have a bolt body, a bolt face, and an extractor, which two of those three pieces are serialized to the gun. So, as near as I can tell, someone owned two of these, scavenged the parts off of that one to keep the other one going, but left all the serialized matching parts to that one, and it's still restorable. So it's going to be a This Old Gat episode. Oh, and the bolt handle broke off. Like the two knobs top and bottom, that metal piece that sticks out where those attached, that got snapped off, and it is sharp. That little broken off piece is sharp. So I need a bolt basically. But if I could buy a whole bolt, I'll buy a whole bolt. If not, I need the parts, which nobody has right now. Fuck. And before anyone asks, no, they're not the same and interchangeable between a K11, because I already tried. I looked. No go. And that reminds me, I was gonna buy a K11 today. Matter of fact, I'm gonna check right now just in case if it's still there. I doubt it, but may get lucky. It is still there. Alright, so I have 2 days to figure out if I can still afford that. Because I kind of want the K11 also. Because I'm trying to do a Swiss rifle collection. I couldn't get the 31 in the beginning. I ended up starting from the very beginning, and I bought an 89. Love it. I did a whole series on it, on how to restore it. I also did a Tinker's reloading video on how to do the, I think it's called a 9124 it's not GP11. It's 7.5 Swiss, but I think it's called the 90/24 load variation, which is slightly lower pressure. So I made that ammo to where it's pressured for that rifle. The plus side is, even though it says 90 or 7.5 by 53.5, I'm running 7.5 by 55. I didn't have to trim the brass or nothing. It head spaces just fine. It shoots just fine. I think that 53.5 thing's kind of BS, to be honest, because like it works just fine. So I can technically take the ammo I'm loading for this gun and just stick it in the K31 and shoot it. It's going to be lower pressure, so it's not going to be full house compared to what a GP11 round is. But hey, it keeps it simple, right? So there's that. So that was my latest acquisition. I bought a K31. It's going to need some parts. And I'm not in a hurry. I'm glad I got it. I was going to buy a GP11 this weekend. But, and for those of you who don't know, today is basically the last day to get a Polymer 80 unserialized frame. For those of you who don't know, the AFTs have decided that they are a lawmaking body.
Technically, the 24th is the last day.
Right, but the problem is most shops are stopping sales and order intake today. Because by the time they process your order and ship it, they're worried that they'll pass an invisible deadline that an agency who doesn't even have legislative authority seems to keep flexing. Like, how the fuck does that work? Right? Anyway, I already have one frame, but I planned on building 2 of the same gun in a dual wield setup, and I couldn't get the color I wanted for the second one. So I'm doing the inverse of the one that I'm building currently, which you'll have to wait and see. But I got the second frame, and for anybody who wants to get one, I would recommend you don't piss around and you better jump on it. Because
so what you're saying is they've got 2 hours left?
Something like that. The guy I bought mine from, hang on a second. I'm trying to be useful here because we've only got the one topic today.
Yep.
Okay. So let me put this into perspective. The guy I got it from, I'll just say it. Gun broker account. His name is G-Man Sport. He's out in Pennsylvania, I think. $110, which is fair because I paid $150 for my first frame because it was a certain color. $110. This is for the 19-sized frame. This morning when I woke up, he had 35 in stock. When I ate my lunch today, he had 19. So I bought one at lunch. Now, as I'm looking at his listing, he has 6 left. So, if you want one, if you're on the fence, you better just pull the trigger, so to speak, now, because there's 6 left. And for the guys here in my Discord, I will go into guns and ammo deals, and I will paste that for you. And then I will go back into here. So it's in the guns and ammo deals if you want it. Anyway. Alright, so that takes care of that. I've wasted 30 minutes of your time, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to get right into today's stories. So, we only have the one because this week the stories have been very centric around the same thing we talked about last week, except it has accelerated further. The escalation of this has accelerated further. So what I decided what I'm going to do, Mikhail Neitstraysky found a great story, so I'm going to let you open up with it, and then we'll put it around the room.
Well, it wasn't really a story. It was part of the live updates from Al Jazeera.
Right.
Let me scroll down because it's been a couple hours since, and they
just to keep updated.
Yeah, they keep updating it. So, let me see here. Let's see. All right, here it is. Putin and Macron hold call, discuss Zaporizhia nuclear plant. Russian President Vladimir Putin and French President Emmanuel Macron have discussed the situation in Ukraine in a phone call, Moscow says. According to a Kremlin readout of the call, Putin said shelling of the controlled Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which he blamed on Kyiv, created the risk of large-scale catastrophe. Both leaders agreed that they need to send a team from the International Atomic Energy Agency to the plant. Putin spoke to Macron about continuing obstacles to supply Russian food and fertilizer products to world markets. So, but before that, it was, it sounded real dire until we actually had the actual information on the phone call.
Yeah,
so
like the way you described it originally, was...
That's the way Al Jazeera described it.
Right, and the way it rubbed off was like, you better be prepared for a disaster, essentially, right? Like that's the way it kind of rubbed off at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and then they finally released the transcript of the actual phone call, so it sounds a little bit better. But the problem is there's been heavy shelling at Zaporizhia, and everybody in Europe and most of the world have been concerned because of the consequences of a reactor like Zaporizhia, which is similar to 3 Mile Island, because it's all reactors in a row, melting down because someone decided to fire a stray shot and crack the superstructure of the nuclear power plant.
So let me ask you, the update that you gave us before we went on air was that Moscow already controls the plant. But if they had already controlled the plant, why would they be shelling it if their people are already in it?
I don't know.
See, that's why I'm saying, like, the stories seem a little odd.
Well, it's Al Jazeera. What can I tell you?
No. Listen, that used to be a joke.
It still is.
No. That ended in, like, 2008. They actually became a pretty legit source of news. Because you have to remember, their headquarters is in Doha, and most of their actual journalists are British.
Yeah.
So it's not like... It's not agenda-driven anymore. And you know what's really funny? Like, I used to watch it every day at work. It was so full of human interest stories. It was really weird.
Before Putin and they released the transcript, what we knew was Putin had told Macron to be prepared for a nuclear catastrophe, and that's what Al Jazeera reported. And then they've edited the report to include the transcript, so now it sounds less catastrophic.
Yeah, they pared it back because now all of a sudden it's like
now they have the actual. They
transcript. Didn't have to sell the fear of, oh my god, that means he's going to attack it, but he has been attacking it.
He's been attacking it, and they've been attacking him, holding it, and it's been going back and forth.
Yeah.
Now, there's more updates where Putin confirmed later in the afternoon readiness to facilitate IAEA inspection in Zaporizhia, because they want to make sure that none of the stray shots hit the reactor, so that the reactor is safe to operate without,
So he for
causing.
sure has it under. He is controlling the area now. He's in
Uh,
there.
Apparently, they are saying that Moscow is occupying the nuclear plant at the moment.
Okay, so that sort of falls in line with a story where he said that those who work in the plant should probably take the day off Friday.
And
Is
that was
what he
probably
said?
alluding to the battle that they had prior, and the Ukrainian forces pulled back that day.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
They pulled back that day, and I guess Russia took control, that day. And it's looking like now they're going to have IAEA inspectors go in from the Russian side to basically inspect the plant to make sure it's not going to lead to radiation contamination, and even melt down and cause even worse radiation contamination of the entire Europe. Which, if I believe, you have a map of. You found a map, so why don't we pull that up?
It is. It's the thumbnail for the war room for this week.
Now,
I was going to explain this map. The
Go
map
ahead.
that you're looking at isn't the entire area of coverage. What you're looking at here is the red spot is Zaporizhia, and what they had done was I think it was a 10-day or a 12-day projection, because what they were saying in this particular photo is the radiation, it's mainly cesium-137. It is going to be released into the atmosphere, which holds a lot of moisture. And the moisture is being dragged by weather fronts. So what you're looking at in that photo is, Mad Sexy's asking, the red spot is the Zaporizhia nuclear power station. That's the plant we're talking about. They have 6 reactors. They're all set up like dominoes in a line, straight line, which is what makes them sort of dangerous, because they're also in close proximity to one another, that damage to one during an attack, because it's not a precision attack, they're peppering the area. It could knock out 2, 3, or all of them.
Remember, Mad Sexy, they have 6 in a line.
Yeah.
3 Mile Island, at the time which they had the 3 Mile Island scare, only had 3 in a line.
Right. He doesn't know we're talking about Ukraine, I think. Like, he's asking where this is at. It's the red dot on that map in that picture right there. It's just off of it's just off the Black Sea. It's pretty
part
close
of the
to the
war
coast.
room.
Yeah.
See, it's right there in red. It's right there. Look up Zaporizhia on the map.
So the thing is that projection with the green blob to the left, if you notice, that's most of Poland. And what this is this is after the cesium is into the atmosphere, and the weather fronts kind of push it away from ground zero, essentially. So what you're looking at there is where it's going to end up after several days. But it would have covered everything in between those 2 points.
And that leads to a conversation we had last week, which when we went back and forth on it. But does nuclear?
Wait. I know you're going to ask that, but we'll get there. Hang on just a second. Before we get to that, if you remember last week, I had a photo of the reactors with Chernobyl, I think it was. Is it this picture here? Yeah.
Chernobyl fallout, yes.
So that's the Chernobyl fallout.
That was just one reactor.
Throughout history. So, like, that wasn't just after the weather front. That was everything after all the information was collated about Chernobyl's one reactor going up and all the radioactive fallout from it over the course of the next 20 years, basically, right? That's how much one reactor did. Zaporizhia has 6. Now remember, Chernobyl had 4 reactors at the plant, but they were set up in a quadrant, not in a straight line. And the one reactor accidentally went up, whereas in Zaporizhia, it's being deliberately attacked. which leads to the question that we discussed yesterday or last week, which is if Russia deliberately attacks a nuclear power plant, knowing that it is possible that it can go off and release hundreds of thousands of tons of radioactive material into the atmosphere, and that material drifts like this projection picture shows.
Sean,
What?
I'm not trying to interrupt you, but permission
But
to
you
speak.
are Mr. Kanye West. What the fuck?
Ain't no Kanye West.
What?
It was into the subject of this. If Putin does that,
Yes.
it's not nuclear, but in my eyes, that is an act of fucking war right there for the most of European nations.
Exactly. So if he deliberately attacks a nuclear plant, knowing that it's possible that the nuclear plant reactors can go critical and melt down or explode or just crack open and release fissile material, and it can drift like this projection estimates, and it covers most of Europe, isn't that considered an Article 5 violation? Because that is an act of war. You deliberately
above
attacked a plant. It is above
That's
it.
above it.
It is above it because you're not attacking one nation. You're attacking the entirety of Europe.
You're pretty much, this is not just like a nuclear bomb. Would be like
Dirty
biowarfare.
Well, this is like a dirty bomb.
Yeah.
So,
Well, no, it's a biowarfare in another way.
well, radioactive rather than biological, but
But you get what I'm saying. It was spread over to multiple nations.
yeah. So the question that we had asked last week was, would that be considered an Article 5 violation? I would think yes. Jaime tried to play devil's advocate about it, and I browbeat the hell out of him for it. But ultimately, I think we all agreed that, yeah, it is, because you are poisoning or killing potentially millions across multiple borders. Some are not even NATO nations. But
It sounds like something al-Assad would do in fucking Syria.
that's exactly what al-Assad did do in Syria with biological weapons that were supplied to him from Russia. So it's like Russians doing Russian things. But you see what I'm saying is if this happens and if half of Poland is irradiated and people are getting sick, I don't think Poland is going to very quietly stand by and allow this. They're going to say they're going to get Jens Stoltenberg in their office, and they're going to be like, you are going to announce that you're going to declare war on Russia, or we're going to go at it alone, and we're going to leave. And if Poland left NATO, how many other European nations that are NATO nations would follow? Because they're like, what's the point of having this boys club if you can't protect one another by your own doctrine? And these people are sick and dying because of a deliberate attack from somewhere else.
Now, Sean, here's a way we can get around this.
It's not about getting around it.
No. I'm saying to avoid the NATO countries coming in to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you could get the Polish Grom as well as the Ukrainian SOF involved and actually take out those fuckers at that nuclear power plant and recapture it.
Well, the difficulty with that, I think, is if you looking at the map, you can figure out how difficult that is, the logistics behind that, because Poland would have to traverse 3/4 of Ukraine's mainland before they even got there, which means they would be telegraphing their movements, which the Russians would be watching very intently. So they would get a pretty good idea when that force is going to be there, and they would probably figure out how to hamstring it all along the way.
If this was a nighttime mission?
Well, they can't traverse that much distance in one night. This is that would be a land-based campaign. Now, if you're talking about just dropping paratroopers, maybe. But the problem
that's what I'm saying.
The problem with that is air defenses.
I'm thinking like Navy SEAL style, just drop them right out of the sky as close as possible to the ground.
Right, but see, the problem with that is Zaporizhia is on the eastern part of the country, and Russia controls the entire eastern part of Ukraine right now.
What other option do we have? That's what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Well, so we discussed this slightly today before the show, and I think I may have a solution. I think I have a solution, but I want to talk about.
Mhm.
Well, let me answer Mad Sexy's question first. He says, if Europe goes to war with Russia, would we be in on it? The answer to that, there's three answers for that. One is if Europe as a
NATO country.
conglomeration of no, just Europe, a continent of conglomerate nations. Let's call it the United Nations of Europe, not like the United States of America, right? If individual countries in Europe declared war on Russia, no, we wouldn't be involved in it. We would probably do what we did in World War I and II. We would be the lords of war. We would sell arms to those countries who would declare war on Russia. But then again, considering who's commander in chief right now, I think that it would be very possible that he would pick and choose who he would sell to, and even then, he would choose what in the arsenal he would be willing to sell, because he would.
He's
just
already
simply
doing that.
Right. He would do it at a much grander scale, because he would say, well, the thing is anything we sell them is going to be offensive to Russia, and this could escalate the situation. And it's just like, shut the fuck up, Joe. Fact of the matter is every single piece of military hardware you have sent to Ukraine and to Poland and to Germany and to wherever the fuck else you're sending around there, that's already provocation. It doesn't matter if you send one missile or 1,000 missiles. As long as one missile shoots down one Russian asset and kills one Russian soldier, that's an escalation. So you might as well just go all out. But that aside, the second possible question is, if NATO goes to war or declares war on Russia via Article 5, then yes, we would absolutely be in on it, because we are the father nation of NATO. And historically, we have provided the money, the weaponry, and the blood in majority for NATO.
Yeah.
Because that's just what we do. I don't
The
agree
other
with
day-
it, but that's what we do.
I have to mention this, and because this is part of the news.
Yeah.
If everyone remembers Henry Kissinger,
Yes.
he
Oh
made
God.
he made a statement the other day, saying that we are closer at war with Russia than we have been, ever in the lifetime of our country.
I think China more than anything in Russia's government right now.
Well, they're sort of the new axis. Like, I think
Yeah.
what Kissinger is saying makes sense, because if you look at the way the previous two world wars had spun up, this is just a classic recipe, because we're getting to the point now where belligerent nations are pairing off and defending nations are pairing off, meaning we're all sitting there taking sides already. Now, the shooting on a global scale has not formally kicked off, but this is how they all started.
Actually, speaking of which, Sean, are you aware of what's happening in Uzbekistan?
Go on.
There's big riots going on. I don't know what it's about, but I just came across it the other day, yesterday.
Kazakhstan's having the same problem. Tajikistan's having the same problem.
So, I mean, is that really leading to the Russian government or something else going on over there?
I think what it may be is these are satellite nations to the south, and I think what their concern is they're seeing the writing on the wall. So, for instance, Russia has full intention to take Ukraine. They don't want to stop there. They want Moldova. They want Estonia. They want Latvia. They want the Cold War map of 1961 before Putin dies. That includes all the Istans.
And let me get
Kazakhstan, all that. They want all those too.
Well, that's why I was asking. Last time I checked, doesn't Russia have their version and equivalent of NATO?
They had, but Poland's not part of Russia anymore.
No, I'm not talking
I think he's talking about
not the Soviet Union. I'm talking about the one today. No, I'm not talking the Soviet Union. I'm talking about now. They have something that's kind of like the Federation of whatever the hell it's called, of unions or whatever.
Yes, sort of. Yes, because it involves a couple of those satellite nations. it's mainly for military protections. But
Yeah, that's what I was talking
there's
about.
that, and now they're making alliances with China and North Korea. So
Oh, it's
I mean, you see what's going on is
They call it the Collective Security Treaty Organization.
right. Well, the fact of the matter is we're spinning up an event where people are choosing sides. That's kind of how this is playing out. They're choosing sides, and
Mhm.
that we know what happens when that happens, because when the United States starts asking that question, we're basically making a target list based on your answer, right? Like if we made a phone call to Estonia and say, "Are you with us or against us?" and Estonia's like, "Bro, we're a NATO nation." Like, "Okay, cool." You know? But if we make a phone call to Syria and be like, "Are you going to get in the way? Are we going to have to liberate the shit out of you?" Bashar al-Assad's not answering that call. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So Mad Sexy's asking, would there be a chance of us getting attacked with nukes? Nuclear
No.
nukes, yes, as opposed to fried chicken nukes. Um, yes, there's always a possibility. Whether or not Putin acts on it is
Okay.
to be determined. Because the fact of the matter is he doesn't want to inherit a dead world, right? So the concept of mutually assured destruction weighs heavily on everyone's mind, whether you're crazy or not. You don't want to nuke the whole world because then you'd be the king of death. Like there's nothing for you to rule over. So very unlikely. Because if he attacked a nuclear nation, obviously the nuclear nation would respond. And if those two major superpowers do that, all the other nuclear nations who may not have as big of an arsenal, but is going to be poisoned by the fallout, they're going to punish both sides by firing off all theirs. That's how mutually assured destruction works.
Pretty much the sum of all fears.
Right. So the fact of the matter is yes, it's always a possibility, but it's always a slim possibility.
Okay.
If it wasn't a slim possibility, there would never be the discussion of tactical nuclear strikes, meaning the small scale ones with smaller, 1 megaton, 2 megaton warheads, just to make a
Right.
point. That's what most major nuclear powers emphasize. They don't do the Tsar Bomba anymore. They pick the small tactical nukes because they want to make a statement with it.
I need to mention this since we mentioned it earlier. The Collective Security Treaty Organization,
Sure.
Russia's version of NATO.
Sure.
The member states are Russia, obviously,
Yes.
Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan.
What about Uzbekistan? Is that on the list too?
Uzbekistan nor Turkmenistan is party to the CSTO, nor is Ukraine, Georgia, Azerbaijan, nor the three Baltic republics.
Okay, I have to point this out. There is a YouTube channel out there called Mr. Spherical. He does those little nation
I've
balls.
seen it.
He recently did a video on that very organization.
Yep.
Like it's worth a
Yep.
watch.
It
The
is.
thing is he always does these as cartoons in jest and hyperbole, but they're based in fact. So like you can watch it and sort of get a history lesson out of it, even though he's doing it as satire. It's still based in fact. So watch it, Mr. Spherical, and check out the stuff about Ukraine and the CSTO or something like that. Whatever
Yes,
that group
CSTO.
is, he has done this. These guys, the thing about cartoonists and creators like this, and this is something that a lot of people don't agree with me on. Rap artists, okay? You have to have a higher level of intelligence to be able to put out something like that in a fashion that the proletariat picks up on, right? Like, if I wanted to teach you a lesson that reaches the masses, if I put it in a cartoon, everyone can understand it, right? So it's like, you have to be able to think like the greatest common factor to do that. Rap artists, like, you might not like their stories, but imagine how fast, like, an Eminem has to be able to roll out the words in real time, sometimes freestyling it. You have to have a very high level of intelligence to do that, and you have to be thinking 10 words ahead and know that it's going to flow and work together. It's the same concept. So, like, stuff like that, you got to hand it to him. Anyway, Putin is not on his deathbed. There's rumors of it. There's rumors of it, but there's nothing to prove it yet. because no doctor in Russia is going to admit it, because then they'll be in a gulag.
Now, question: is there anybody up in Russia right now wanting to actually rip off Putin's head right now for what he's been doing?
Navalny, but he's in solitary confinement. Alexei
In other words,
Navalny.
in other words,
the great
citizens
white
haven't roped
hype.
up.
Well, he's the great white hope of Russia. Like,
You need a militia going on in Russia right now at this point.
do any of you know who Admiral Kolchak is?
No.
Okay, history lesson.
Russian Navy?
Yes, history lesson. Movie called The Admiral in Russian with English subtitles. Find it, watch it, love it. It's the what is it? The White Army versus the Red Army. The story of that.
Mm-hmm.
Alexei Navalny is basically the next Kolchak. He could be the next Kolchak. Problem is he's already in jail. If he had not gotten caught and arrested, he might have been the next Kolchak. You might have seen another Russian Revolution.
You mean when he was poisoned on the airplane?
There was that too, yes. I think that's when they arrested him, was when we went to the hospital, right?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, so before I tangent off, based on what's going on, I had come up with an idea that I think we're going to see happen very soon in NATO or in the UN or in the IAEA, because we've gotten to this point where somebody...
Scott has fallen asleep.
He's restoring.
Hang on. Let me put him up here, and then if he jumps into the green room, I'm gonna put him in the AFK.
He's still awake.
Is he?
Scott, you fell asleep.
Okay. Well, good morning, chat member. Anyway.
I wasn't chat napping.
Really? So that snoring that everyone just heard was something else?
That's not snoring.
Oh, you are so
I'm
full of it.
reclined, looking at my TV, and I breathe funny when I do that.
All right.
I can fucking post pictures.
Anyway. I think what you're going to see is a new doctrine come out of all of this, because this has to end eventually. And I think what we're going to discover is how wars will be fought in the future when nuclear power plants are in play. And follow me here. When Russia came in back in February and March, they went straight for Chernobyl. And when they got to Chernobyl, they dug trenches, idiots, got sick, and they planted explosives all around the reactor because they were going to threaten the world and hold it hostage at first by taking out Chernobyl, or at least holding it ransom against the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is they all got sick and they had to retreat because they were dying. So they all left. So they were like, okay, that plan's not going to work. So what did they do next?
Was it ever confirmed that they planted explosives?
They tried to plant them. They were trying to bury them, and then they all got sick, and they sort of scrapped the whole plan. Because I think they were trying to set up fortifications, not just to blow up the plant. I think they just set it up as fortifications. Either way. So that didn't work out, they retreated, right? So they were like, okay, well, we can't hold the nuclear station in Chernobyl ransom, so why don't we close all the ports and starve the world's grain supply instead? We'll hold the world hostage with the grain supply. Well, they tried, but they failed to take Odessa. They're close enough to it to where they can really mess with exports, yes, but they never succeeded that either. And it eventually led to a negotiation where, well, shit, we can't hold grain exports now, so now we're going to have to go and find something else to hold the Europe hostage. So what do? They went back to Zaporizhia for the second time, right? So that's what they're doing now. And when we talked about, small-scale nuclear weapons for tactical strikes, why would you do that if you could just hold the nation's nuclear power stations hostage under the threat of turning them into dirty bombs? Because that's a small-scale nuclear explosion if you do it just in that one spot, right? So that's what they're doing. They're holding a nuclear power plant hostage. under the guise of, if you fuck with us, we'll set this off. Don't do it. Don't provoke us. Right? So I think what's
That's
going
what
to
it sounds
happen,
like.
I came up with this idea. And it was based off of exactly what happened in Ukraine for the last 6 months. In the event of an attack, like if you see Russians doing Russian things building up along your borders, for instance, right? Back when they were doing that, the very first thing that should have happened was every nuclear plant in Ukraine should have been shut down. I mean, flat out, just shut them down, turn all the reactors cold. Then, as soon as you've done that, yes, there's going to be a giant drop in power, obviously, but you're going to have to do this for the sake of saving Europe. So think of the bigger picture here. You make all the reactors cold. Then you contact the UN or NATO or the IAEA, and you immediately remove all nuclear fissile material out of the country. Take it all out. So that way, when a belligerent nation invades your country, they can't turn your nuclear reactors into dirty bombs. They can't hold your power stations hostage because you already shut them off and you took all the fuel away. So they're basically walking into empty warehouses. That's going to be the future of how to handle warfare in light of what Russia has taught the world. Because think about it. Every war before this, never was a nuclear power plant a target. Or at least it was never disclosed as a specific target, right? Maybe it was we sort of had our targeting fucked up and it kind of veered off and hit that one over there. But like, he has deliberately targeted nuclear plants. And you can't call it an accident. Because the first time for Chernobyl, you could say, well, he was passing through. Zaporizhia, he hit twice after Chernobyl, which means this is actually his third attack on a nuclear power station. It's intentional. Plus, we said if he actually does it and succeeds, it's Article 5 all over again. Because he's poisoning the world, right? Undeniable. So on top of that, you make all the reactors go cold, you take all the material out, and send it somewhere else. That way, when Russia comes in, they're like, shit, they took everything. Right? That's the future. That is the future. That's how you stop shit like this. But we would have never
You know what the
gotten
only
to
problem
this.
with that is?
What?
It takes months to shut down a nuclear power plant.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But how long did it take Putin to build up the forces around the country? A year. So
Yeah, who knew he was going to attack a nuclear power plant?
it doesn't matter. Now, in hindsight, you're right. But now that this lesson has been taught to the world, now you have to do it. That's the only preventative measure you have so this never happens again. And yes, it's a giant inconvenience, but so is identity theft. So are car accidents. This
No,
is
not an inconvenience. That could bankrupt countries just doing that.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. See, the fact of the matter
If
is
there's no country left, there's no point in doing it.
it doesn't matter because if the country's irradiated, you still don't have a country. What you're doing is you're taking away something they can hold ransom, which means, okay, here's a good example. Think of how many nuclear power plants we have in the United States, and think of how much their total output actually equates to the totality of the amount of energy that's generated in the United States. They don't produce the lion's share of electricity for the United States power grid. Meaning, if we had to shut them down, we can lean heavily on every other method that we use to hopefully take up the slack. We're not saying completely, but hopefully take up the slack. And besides, if you're in a wartime situation, blackouts, rationing, whatever, right? Power. So whatever. We would make do in the United States. We would find a way to make it work.
Yeah, but Europe would be fucked.
Don't care. See, up to this point, you're correct. What I'm saying is because of this conflict, this is teaching the world that we have to change the way we react to this. permanently. You're right. It would fuck up the world right now, maybe on the power grid or maybe economically or whatever. But now it's out of necessity. So they're going to say, look, we can lean on nuclear power in peacetime, but we better have a backup plan in case we have to evac all the material out of those plants so they can't be used as weapons in war. That's what I'm saying. Like they would have to figure it out.
You can't evac that shit.
You're going to have to find a way to do it. That's what I'm saying.
There
you have
isn't.
to figure it
That's
out
the
a way.
problem.
No, there isn't right now with the way that we do things right now. I would admit that. You can turn off a reactor and make it go cold, right? You just jam all the control rods in there and stop the reaction. We know that. Taking the fuel out of it, that might take some time. Sure. But in a wartime situation, everything is accelerated. Everything. Meaning either corners are cut or they're not as paranoid about how to do it.
You just gave us the reason not to react that way.
No, see, that's
because they cut corners.
The whole
you know what
point
happens
of
when
it
you cut
is
corners with nuclear power?
no, you don't cut corners with making nuclear power. You don't cut corners to
You
turn
can't
it
cut
off.
corners shutting down a nuclear power plant.
You just drop the control rods and stop the reaction. That's how you stop that.
Yes. And how do you remove the nuclear control rods from the power plant?
The rods aren't what you take out of there.
The rods are what are freaking radioactive.
No, the rods stop the reaction.
Absorb the radiation.
They stop it. Like it's
Absorb
like putting
it.
water on a fire. Anyway, the point is this is going to innovate the way we handle this, I guess is a good way to put it. You're right. Maybe the way that we do it now is timely and inefficient. This is going to force a paradigm shift. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
The
that,
only option is to harden them from attack.
No.
Which means you have to
take it away
station
from the
massive
enemy.
military force around them.
No, you just take it away from
To
the enemy,
protect
plain
them.
and simple. Because fixed fortifications are the monuments of mankind's
Oh,
stupidity.
don't get me with that quote.
You know that quote.
I know that quote, and I also know you can't move a nuclear freaking power plant.
Right, so you just take the fuel away. That's what I'm saying. You take the fuel away. That's it. If
And
you
you know how
even,
that's a month, if not years long process.
that's fine,
I've
Scott.
worked in the nuclear power industry.
That's
I created freaking the nuclear fuel rod containers.
That's fine. You're talking about things being used in a peacetime situation. We have built battleships and aircraft carriers in record time. We built B-24s to the tune of 1 a day. Don't tell
And
me
that's
what can't be
before
done.
everything was made in fucking China.
Just don't tell me it can't be done, okay? Anything that says it can't be done will be done eventually. The fact of the matter is I'm not saying with what we're doing right now, it has to be that way right now. I'm saying that it's going to change the way we do things in the future because now we know what war is capable of producing. It's capable of producing an asshole who is willing to crack a nuclear reactor egg to poison the world around it. And the only way you can stop somebody from doing that is taking away his candy, which means if he wants the candy in that egg,
No,
you take it away. Yes.
the only way to stop somebody from doing that is to take the asshole out.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Really?
Yeah. Wouldn't it have happened already?
Yeah. Well, technically
What?
Ukraine
He's been
could
in
have
power
done
for
it
25 years.
Well, Ukraine could do it if they kind of didn't give up their nuclear weapons.
No, he's been in power for over 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can take him out. That's the whole point. I mean, look, Poland doesn't have to wait for Ukraine to decide to take out Putin if they really didn't want to. No nation has to, right? Like, who has the most to lose here aside from Ukraine? Poland, right? Nuclear fallout map right there, right? If anybody thought, fuck this, it's not going the way we need it to, we could have prevented. We're trying to prevent the world saying, if only we had done this sooner. Because those are the people you execute first. Because those are the assholes who probably had a solution and didn't get off their ass to suggest it or to do it, right? So the fact of the matter is you want to prevent the words, if only we had done something sooner in a wartime situation. Instead of saying that, why don't you just say, look, we want to make the omelet, we're going to have to crack a few eggs.
You're
Right?
telling me if somebody didn't put a billion-dollar bounty on Putin's head, it wouldn't be claimed?
It hasn't been claimed in 25 years.
Because it hasn't been offered.
Do you... How much do you think the guys who took out Osama bin Laden made?
Nothing.
Right.
Because the government fucked them on it. Because they
Well,
are government
yes.
employees, so they don't get government bounties.
Yes, but okay, here's another question. Why does Al-Qaeda and Taliban never do terrorist attacks in Russia?
Because Russia would fucking annihilate them in a heartbeat. They don't even
Exactly.
fucking
Because
want
there's
to.
If-
almost no Muslims in Russia.
It doesn't matter.
Bullshit. No, that's bullshit.
Well, that too, but it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is nobody pokes the Russian bear. Why? Remember when I used to say that everyone's afraid of the Cold War boogeyman that doesn't exist anymore? He has that reputation he's been riding for this whole time.
No,
even
because
the
about
world's
30 years
worst
ago, the
terrorist
Russians had a
organizations-
bad taste in their mouth.
Listen, the world's worst terrorist organizations won't even attack him.
The Chechens were even tried failing and taking on Russia.
They're split in 3 pieces right now, Chechnya.
Really, the Russians haven't fucked with Afghanistan since the 1980s. Wonder why?
No, but
Touche.
Hold on.
Syria.
But the
That's not
Afghans
Russia.
never went. The Afghans never.
And that
went
was when it
into
was the Soviet Union that
It
had
was Soviet Union, not Russia.
massive, and that's when they had massive armies that they could actually mobilize.
Look, the
Russia
Soviet,
is a shadow of what the Soviet Union was.
We know this, but still,
We know this.
The thing is
That was combined with multiple nations, first of all.
Afghanistan never went into Russia in retaliation, did they?
Nope.
No.
They didn't have to.
No, they defended their territory and ran the invader out. Sounds like Ukraine right now, doesn't it? The only difference is Afghanistan had no nuclear power plants, and they weren't near.
Which is why you fucking harden the nuclear power plants.
You're not going to successfully do that. Ever.
Really?
Yes. Ever.
So
you see, the fact of the matter
I'm pretty
is
sure
you will
U.S.
always...
ones are
No, you were... Look,
withstanding a 747 crashing into them.
yeah, but you're also talking about a nation that's halfway around the world. Okay, the Russians are next door to Ukraine. They will eventually overrun the country. You can harden it as much as you want. It doesn't matter. See, we don't ever have to worry about a land invasion. The Canadians never want to invade us. Mexico never wants to invade us. Will they host armies of other nations that might want to invade us? Yet to be determined. No. But you see, we have a very comfortable security blanket called the Western Hemisphere, which Ukraine doesn't have. Doesn't have it.
And you know what? It's sad because they're right
You
next to
do know
Poland.
nuclear power plants are a double-edged sword, right?
What the
Yes.
fuck does that have to do with anything about stopping Russia from turning them into a weapon?
Because it works both ways.
No, you don't get it, dude. The power plant...
How many Russian power plants are within striking distance of Ukrainian forces, I wonder?
All right, fair enough. We did discuss this too, and that's a fair
3
point.
or 4 at least.
That is a very fair point. So let's touch on that subject. 'Cause
And
obviously
which
we're
way does the
looking
wind
at
blow normally?
west to east, or east to west in that part of the world. That's the problem. You see that projection map that I posted up there? That is 12 days after. That green blob, if you can go and look up that video, the video that picture comes from is, what was it called? I looked up radiation projections for an attack on Zaporizhia. You will find that video from that picture, and it animates it. It starts at that red dot. It blooms in the center, covers almost all of Ukraine, and then that cloud grows and goes west. So the answer to your question, it goes from east to west, not like it does in the United States, from northwest to southeast. Different currents. Sorry, that's how they came up with that. But let's touch on that subject that you just mentioned, because that is something that you, me, and Mike here has discussed before. And you're right. There are 4 major nuclear plants.
Technically 3.
One of them's huge. On the Russian side, right across the border on the Russian side. The question with that is eye for an eye, right? You attack Zaporizhia, we attack. What's that one that you mentioned 3 times or 4 times this week?
The one that's closest is Kursk. Kursk.
Right. So it's like you attack Zaporizhia, we attack Kursk. Right? Okay. Here's the questions that have to be asked. How far is Kursk from the Russian border? And I think it was like, what, 400 and something miles?
It was about 100 miles from Sumy.
Okay. Wait, 100 miles?
Yeah, we did it. It's like from Sumy to Kursk, it's about 100 miles.
Okay. This is possibly, why Biden is very specific about the range of the type of weapons that we have been giving Ukraine as aid. Because if you look at the weapons we gave him and the ones that the Russian or the Germans have given him, the Panzer Haubitze 2000 has an effective range maximum 67 miles, which means it would never be able to hit that plant. The only way they're going to be able to hit that plant is if Ukraine steps over the border and pushes towards there and then starts shelling it. Whereas Russia is already occupying your country. That's why they're in this position. They are in a catbird seat, so to speak. Whereas the Ukrainians have been on the defensive from day one. To be able to go on a counteroffensive has been discussed, and it came out in one of today's stories that Zelensky vows a counteroffensive to retake Crimea. But do you notice what he's doing? His only verbal intentions are to take back what was already his country. He has never once spoken of stepping across the border and pushing into Russia, because that does 2 things. One, it makes him look like a non-provocateur, right? He's just saying, look, I just want my country left alone. I'm not going to go and invade Russia to do it. I'm just going to expel them from my country. In terms of diplomacy, that looks really good. In terms of war fighting, you're fucking pussy. Because Putin's not going to stop, like Scott would say, until Putin is taken out. And I would 100% agree with you on that. But
right,
Zelensky's not willing to step into Russia because it makes him look like a better diplomat that way.
And the Russians won't stop unless they're met with, equal force or overwhelming force.
Right, because that's all they understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like liberals. They only understand violence because that's all they do. That's all they use. But to be fair, yes, eye for an eye would make logistical, tactical sense. But then there goes that whole argument of mutually assured destruction again. And then I already know what you're going to say. Well, they put their country in jeopardy by attacking someone else's reactor anyway. So why do you care about us attacking their reactor? Well, because nobody wins in that situation, right? Everyone gets sick, and that whole region becomes uninhabitable. Do you want a Chernobyl exclusion zone the entire size of half of Ukraine and half of Western Russia? No, because now you want to talk about crushing an economy? You can't use the roads. You don't want to fly through it. You don't want to swim under it. Like, you're going to cut off a giant part of the world. All the industry in that is gone. All the farms in that are gone. All the water, all the livestock, all the insects, whatever. The whole thing is compromised. You want to talk about a global catastrophe? That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why the eye for an eye thing is dangerous. Because yes, it gets you a result, But that's not the result that you actually want in the end. You have to see the wood for the trees. And in this case, you know me. You know I want to be the next John C. Woods. Everybody, I think, knows that. I want to be the next hangman of Nuremberg. Justice is my virtue. I want Putin to die. I mean, he doesn't deserve to live. I'm sorry. Like, he could have stayed in Russia, and if he had stayed in Russia and he didn't mess with Ukraine, right? And like whatever he does to his own people has still been kind of squashed, and I was left ignorant to what he does to his own people, I would probably be up here right now telling you that I still think Putin's a great leader. Because once upon a time I used to tell you guys that. I'm like, that's what a real leader looks like. He doesn't take no shit from nobody, and he gets what he wants done. He leads his people. I've been saying that for years. But he's lost all my respect because he couldn't keep it within his own borders. He had to go and be a goddamn warmonger. Now I have no respect for him. But he's got to go. You can't, when this is over, you can't just let him quietly ride off into the sunset and retire. He's a war criminal now. Massive war criminal. He's got to be held to an account for this. Do you think the IAEA is going to do anything about it? No. Do you think The Hague is going to do anything about it? No. So that means there's only one solution to this. Finality. But who's going to go do it? That's why you need Navalny. Or you need someone like him. This is going to
You think
end...
he's still alive?
He is. They released a video of him the other day while he was in solitary or whatever. Plus his lawyer is allowed to visit him, I think it's once or twice a week. And he's allowed to use social media when they're there. So yes, he is still alive. He looks very
And you don't think
ill.
there's standing orders to, if anything were to happen, if it looks like things are going sideways,
Kill
to have him
Navalny?
executed?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Like an if this, then this type of plan system. No doubt.
Mhm.
But see, I think that the solution to the... I'm sorry, I'm going to sound like a Nazi here. I think the solution to the Russian problem...
The final solution?
The final solution to the Russian problem, it has to be solved by the Russians. It really does. Like, if it's not Navalny...
and the Ukrainians probably actually have a weapon system that can reach Russian nuclear power plants.
If they do, then why are they asking us for something that reaches out even further than what they have?
They have Harpoon missiles. There's a specific variant that has a 250 kilometer range.
You're gonna make me do math, you bastard. Alright, hang on.
It's called the SLAM ER.
It's 155 miles. Okay, so that one might reach. Might reach. Depends on how far you can... Well, actually, no. You know what the problem with that is? Ukraine doesn't hold Sumy. See, Russia holds the entire border.
Yeah.
Northeastern border of Russia.
They can be air launched.
It can be air launched.
From what?
Kyiv.
They've managed to jerry-rig freaking harm missiles to MiGs.
You're saying that they can grab...
Probably
You can
shoot
air
them
launch
from-
a harpoon from a...
This
plane.
sounds like something from Independence Day. So you're saying they can graft a weapon onto a MiG-29?
Well, here is the little conundrum now. I was reading about it, and nobody knows quite how they were launching those harms. Because it would be a pain in the ass to retrofit
Yeah.
the current MiG-29s that they have.
Yeah, but the Grim Reapers did it. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, but in reality, it's a lot harder. However,
Okay.
Macedonia had upgraded MiG-29s to work with NATO weapon systems.
Didn't the Poles do that too?
Yes, they did.
Because
Yes, they did.
And
remember the whole...
and
they had
those
about
MiG
20 of
and
them.
those
They had a-
Polish MiGs disappeared at the border with Ukraine.
Oh, also,
Did
Sean,
They
most of the-
disassembled them and fucking brought them in. By
Did they?
truck.
Yes.
Most of those MiGs, by the way, Sean, in Poland, were bought from East Germany, Czech Republic, and they even bought them from, where was the other nation?
Well, they know the Macedonian ones are missing.
The Macedonian
Those were
ones?
in-
They haven't found anywhere they might be in.
They're
They know
probably
those 20 MiGs are missing. So those
So-
were probably procured and are now in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because they would have already been pre-wired with all the NATO electronics to fire the weapons.
So what you're
Mhm.
saying is Juice, who came to speak to Congress, was here for a week because they were busy repainting this Macedonian MiG-29 to look like the one he used to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Wink, wink. Maybe.
Wink, wink.
Hey, maybe.
Hey, and we're lucky we might find a nice
If they
MiG
do-
Top Gun.
Maybe.
And if they did, that means they're probably capable of launching harpoons,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
not just harm missiles.
Okay. Look,
And that
This is
significantly
all supposition,
extends
of
their
course.
range.
that's a fascinating theory. Like I'm not arguing you with that. I think that's fine. That's great, actually.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Remember that video I just sent you this week of the Ukrainian Navy demolishing all those Russian vehicles?
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that, my friend?
I haven't had a lot of time to think about anything this week. I know you didn't hear the intro, but I'm still playing catch up, to be honest. Like, this show was actually easy for me to do this week because I did the weekly show prep. I looked at it, and like 9 out of the 10 stories was still nuclear things. So I thought, okay, we're going to do
So
this.
it was better as a periodical, roundtable than it was an actual,
Yes.
let's read everything that's going on.
Let me just read the description here for you.
Sure.
Ukrainian Navy artillery gunners rained down hell on a group of Russian military vehicles hiding among the trees, killing at least 6 enemy soldiers.
Oh,
The images were shot somewhere on the front lines between Kherson and Donetsk in southern Ukraine on Tuesday, 16th August.
I have
According
that.
to Ukraine.
I did that in part of the video to
Yep.
open the show today. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that was that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I finish the rest of it?
Yeah, go ahead.
The images, which appear to have been shot from a drone, reportedly show a number of Russian military vehicles hiding among some of the trees before a massive explosion appears to target them.
Yep.
The footage was obtained from the Navy of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Wednesday, 17th August. The Sun newspaper brings you the latest breaking news, videos, and explainers from the UK around the world. So yeah, pretty much the Ukrainian Navy just bombarded their asses.
I had a video, and I was gonna put it in my intro video tonight, but the problem is the video doesn't give you context, so I didn't want to use it. But one of those drones had a homemade anti-tank grenade.
Yep.
Whatever that is, right? I think it's just a giant.
Oh, you like
fucking-
that video I posted?
Giant IED, basically, right? This thing
Was that,
dropped the IED down the open hatch of a T-62 and just
That
obliterated
wasn't an
it.
IED.
It was
That
a-
was a regular old grenade.
Yeah, and it just obliterated that tank. I'm like, holy shit.
But here's a
Well,
question.
think of how much spall is bouncing around inside that tank.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's bound to hit something that's going to go boom.
Well,
Sean.
one of the other tanks in my video was actually Ukrainians using a T-62M. So
So
both
they got
both sides are scraping the bottom of the barrel. Either that or maybe the Ukrainians captured it and they were like, fuck it, paint it yellow and blue.
Well, remember what those Ukrainian farmers are doing.
Stealing T-92s. Just hooking up their tractors to it and be like, see ya.
See, if the Russians get out of them, they're hooking them up to the tractors and running off with them.
Well, I think the problem now is, I didn't mention this, but for those of you who didn't know, I did update the scroller for the show, and just in the last week, they knocked out 50 more tanks. 10 just today. So yeah, 1,900 tanks. They can't have many left.
Well,
Not any ones that are decent.
No,
yeah,
I
no,
think
not
they're
anyone's
getting,
a decent.
they're
The
getting
joke-
down to T-54s now.
No, they may have to take the T-34s out of mothball.
I read something about that, and I have a theory on that, and I don't disagree with it.
Obviously, it's a joke, but it's
No.
it's not. It's
No,
not
no,
a
no,
joke
no,
at
no,
this
no, no.
point.
No, look. If you're an infantryman in Kherson, okay, and you're constantly under fire by Ukrainian sharpshooters or just guerrilla warfare, right? Nothing would be more encouraging than if your commander shows up with, let's say, 25 T-34 tanks. Because you as an infantryman are going to go, well, that ain't going to do shit against the Javelin. And then the commander goes, yes, but we're going to let you use it as an armored personnel carrier. We're going to let you put 5 guys in each one, and we're only going to load your tank with high explosive shells, and you will be protected from most small arms fire, which is better than you walking around in the streets with nothing. And that's comforting in a way. Now, it almost goes back to the way that the British used to use the tank. In World War I, the British actually employed the tank as an infantry support vehicle, which is why they were very slow, because a walking soldier had to be able to use it as a mobile bunker. That's all the tank was for. They crawled. The Matilda barely moved. The Churchill barely moved. The TOG 1 and TOG 2s barely moved. There was a reason for that, because they believed that the tank was used to support the infantry, and the infantry got to use them as giant shields, basically, with a big gun on the end of it. That's what it was for. If Russia gets pushed into using and re-employing T-34s and T-54s, which have no protection against fucking discard sabot rounds, none. No protection against fucking anything like a Javelin. Hardly any protection against even something as simple as an RPG, right? The only use it will have is as an infantry support vehicle, only. But think of what that does to the morale of your soldiers on the ground who had nothing the day before. Hey, we're going to give you a bunch of old tanks, but at least it'll stop AK rounds coming at you. That's not bad. I would take my chances. That's why it's not a bad idea, because they still have hundreds of them probably. Not a terrible plan. But then again, if you're Ukraine and you know they're coming, it's going to go down in the annals in history as the great Zaporizhia turkey shoot. Like, yeah, we just fucking airlifted 10,000 javelins and just eradicated every T-34 in 6 hours. Like, that could happen. That could totally happen.
It could, yes.
Imagine if you had 4 T-34s in a block, like a combat box, 2 and 2 going down a main road, and you drop 1 javelin on top of 1. The explosion from that one will take out the 3 around it. That'd be epic. Think of the YouTube views. Anyway, sorry.
Love the YouTube views.
I'm having fun with the destruction of human life, and that's not cool.
No, it's not.
Okay, so we had there was another story that came up at the very end. Scott, I think you mentioned it, right?
Yep.
Okay, can you paraphrase it? I'll screen share it while you paraphrase it. I have to find it, actually. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up, and you just kind of describe it a bit, because this is pretty scary.
Well, Putin pulled another fucking fast one on Europe.
Right?
He deployed claims he deployed, because it hasn't been verified, that he deployed hypersonic weapons in
Kaliningrad.
Kaliningrad in Poland.
For those of you who don't know, Kaliningrad is that small little bit of like
Russia, right above Poland.
It's northeast Poland, basically. It's like a piece of Poland. It's not physically connected.
That they
to
never
Russia.
gave back.
That they never gave back. That I think you and I and everyone here, we have discussed this ad infinitum, ad nauseum, ad mortem, that once this conflict is over, certain things are almost a guarantee. Russia loses Crimea, Russia loses Kaliningrad. For sure. Like, the Poles are going to be like, fuck that, get them out of here. That's your punishment, right?
The only way Russia will lose Kaliningrad is if Russia pushes NATO into involvement.
There's actually 3 nations, not Poland, but 3 nations that are actually putting a hurt on Kaliningrad right now.
Yeah.
That is Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania mostly. Lithuania is actually putting more of a rage on them right now.
Yeah.
By the way, guess what? Those countries are NATO countries.
Right.
Yep, and also Lithuania is Poland's number 2, one of the best allies and friends they've actually made over the centuries.
Okay.
So, according to this story, 3 Russian MiG-31s, which I think that's a really fast plane. They landed at was it Chekhovsk Air Base? Yeah, in Kaliningrad. Chekhovsk.
Yeah.
With the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. So yeah, they technically have brought these Kinzhal missiles into Kaliningrad.
Yep.
And the funny thing is yesterday, Finland intercepted 2 Russian MiG-31s through their airspace. So, Russians doing Russian things. They're moving hypersonic missiles on their western front, I guess is a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but honestly, they're moving them to Kaliningrad, which means they're going to try and get them into Belarus.
That's not hard to do.
Oh no, which wouldn't be hard to do, but from the area, they'd have to like skirt two NATO country borders.
I think you're looking in the wrong direction, honestly. Think about it like this. Russia can move assets into Belarus anytime it wants. They're connected still. They don't have to do the end around to do that. I think what they're actually doing, if this is true, if what this story suggests is true, they're actually bringing the Kinzhal missiles to stop ocean shipments from, is that the White Sea up there?
Black Sea. I think it's the Black Sea, isn't it?
Baltic Sea.
Yeah, Baltic.
Okay.
Baltic.
That's what they're doing. They're preparing to porcupine that ocean with the threat of using Kinzhal missiles against shipping, because any major hardware would come up from the north down into Poland. That's the quickest way to get it to Poland. Because if you shipped it across the Atlantic, right, you're not going to take it to Portugal and then hop a plane or trains. No, you just go over the top of England, across the White Sea into the Baltics, right, and drop it straight down into Poland, because Poland has a northern coast.
But Sean, you forget, if they use those missiles on any forces other than Ukrainians, then they invoke Article 5.
Right, but see, that's the thing. Russians doing Russian things, playing the long game.
And hold on. Time out just for a second.
Sure.
Okay, we've got a Polish person here. Okay, Warsaw, how much do you love the Russians right now?
It's a 2-part question. What do you mean by Russians? What type of Russians you're talking about?
The current. Okay, how much do you love Putin and say the Russian military right now?
I outright hate him, and I also wish Putin would actually die, and actually an actual Russian citizen who actually values his own people, not be like Putin.
Okay, that's how most of the Polish in Poland feel right now, but
more so because they dislike the Russians. You also miss that there's also a big Russian populace that also defies and hates Putin too, and his administration.
Yeah, but my point is, if Russia decided to attack, say, Polish cargo ships because they're bringing in material and equipment they're going to give to Ukraine, I'm telling you right now, Poland would say like they attacked our ships. We're invoking Article 5. That would.
Let me ask you this: did they actually do that?
They would. I believe Poland would.
Right, but see, that's the problem. Poland can say it, but Jens Stoltenberg has to agree to it.
Honestly, I don't think it matters at this point.
It does.
As I told you before, he is a figurehead.
Right.
He is
the head of NATO.
He may be the head of NATO, but if one military force decides to go and join him because they get attacked, then I'm telling you right now, you think Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania aren't gonna do anything and are just gonna sit there? I'm gonna tell you no. They're gonna do something. We have no idea.
You the rope here.
Hell, they'd probably take over Belarus if they wanted to.
No,
and
no,
take
They
the
would-
fucker
listen,
out.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm feeding you the rope here because I'm leading up to a point. You're right.
Yeah.
See, the fact of the matter is Jens Stoltenberg,
Mhm.
when he makes a public statement, it carries the weight of NATO law because when he says it, that means NATO is supposed to do it, right?
Okay,
What you're saying is what I think is about to happen is Poland throws up its hands and says, "Fuck this. Enough. If you're not going to prevent this from happening, then we're leaving. Who's coming with us to stop this? Because obviously the man in charge here is worthless."
Hey,
Because what
Sean.
they're going to do is an angry Poland or an angry Latvia, Estonia, or Lithuania with Poland, or an angry any NATO nation that has their hands tied because Stoltenberg won't let them do what they need to, they will start to leave. They're like, you know what? We joined this for protection, and you don't want to do your job, so we're going to have to do it alone. How many of you are coming with us? And they will
Sean.
start their own coalition to stop
Mhm.
this because they will have proven that NATO has outlived its usefulness because it serves no purpose. If it doesn't do what it set out to do, then it serves no purpose and everyone should leave. Oh, I got to get Jaime in here. There you go.
No, Sean. How much do you want to bet that Finland would also work aside with Poland?
Possibly. I mean, they
If
share
Poland
a
makes a move, then Finland
790
would
mile
probably take
border with
Mhm.
Russia. They have a lot to lose.
Finland didn't just fight a war with Russia.
They
at
fucking
some
hate
point.
their asses for the
But see,
past.
you know what the problem with that is, though? I still have a beef, okay? Finland and Sweden applied and were joined into NATO in 4 weeks. 4 fucking weeks.
Compared to
Actually,
Ukraine.
if you condense it down to the actual days between start to finish, it was 10 days.
Because they have money.
Doesn't matter. Ukraine
doesn't have money.
Ukraine applied 8 years ago.
And they were
They
denied because
they
they didn't give
supply-
their fucking list.
You can't tell me it's not about money. They supply over 30% of the world's grain. They got the money. Okay? They feed 30% of the world's
And the
grain.
world's fertilizer.
How do you stop a Polish army on horseback? I see a joke coming here. Humor
Oh,
me,
God.
Jimmy.
Okay, Jimmy's out there.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You can jump in. I'll pull you in the channel. Jump on the server. I'll pull you in.
No, but seriously,
You're welcome to
If-
join us. Turn
if
off
there
the
was a-
carousel.
Up the carousel.
I mean, what other nations actually fucking hate the Russian government more
All
than any?
All of them.
No. No, I'm
Most
saying-
of,
no,
most
I'm
of
saying-
Europe.
I'm talking at a level like Poland and Finland.
Um,
Because the closer they are, the more beef they hate with them.
Ukraine, Afghanistan.
probably the Czech Republic, Slovakia,
Oh.
probably Hungary, Romania for sure.
I want to pose a question to you, a hypothetical. Imagine if, let's say Biden didn't get elected. Okay? Just hear me out. Let's say Biden didn't get elected. Let's say we're right now into year 6 of a Trump presidency. Okay? Russia may have still tried to incur on Ukraine. Let's just throw that possibility up there. Okay? China may not have been as vocal about Taiwan, though. We would not have abandoned Afghanistan. We wouldn't have not abandoned those people in Afghanistan. We
would have ramped it down, of course.
And we didn't let the army left behind.
We would not have created several
A terrorist
generations.
state.
Well, no, we wouldn't have created several new generations of Afghanis that hate us for abandoning them. Because that's what happened, right? So, you were just asking the question, what other nations hate Russia as much as Poland does?
Yeah,
Basically all of Europe.
He was like NATO nations, and that's most of Europe.
I'm talking hardcore.
Oh, most
Doesn't-
of Eastern Europe too.
Listen, a world war doesn't matter if you're part of NATO or not, right? Nations that hate Russia, that border Russia, that hate it as much as Poland. I would have argued that Trump would have
Georgia's one of them.
Trump would have sent a Nikki Haley type person over to Afghanistan to recruit them to attack Russia on the southern front.
How about Georgia? Georgia would do it.
Georgia
do it.
would.
Georgia would.
Geor-
The third of Chechnya that still hates Putin, they would.
Bulgaria,
Maybe.
Hungary. I think definitely be on it.
Maybe. It's just you were asking what nations hate them.
Romania.
I think it would be easy to grab the tribal leaders of Afghanistan that were part of the war against Russia to motivate their youngsters to say, look, you got to fight those guys. Hey, look, Jimmy made it.
What's up, guys? Hey, I was wondering,
Yeah,
how do you sink a Polish battleship?
I
You
know.
pulled a cork.
I know. This
Simple word. Simple word.
No,
Torpedo and submarine.
No,
I
there's a
just-
joke here. Go ahead.
No, it's
Just-
a joke.
Just put it in the water.
No, that's a Swedish warship.
It's Swedish.
No, that
Mauser.
one was already in the water. That one just tried sailing through the water.
Okay. Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, this is Michelle Obama, also known as Jimmy James, of the New Watch podcast. I don't know if you saw my new video today. I premiered it on tonight's show, but I will upload it to the channel later so you can see it.
Oh yeah, I need to see that. What is it about?
It's the intro song that you made, but I made a music video for it, and I gave your song a name.
Oh hell yeah!
So the name of your song is shit, I forgot.
Was it Meltdown?
It's a good ass name.
No. Oh,
I forgot. That's a good title.
It's a good title, yeah.
It's like
No,
half of the shows.
No, I think I called it War. These Are the Days.
Hell yeah!
So yeah, I made a video for that, and I will work on your new watch short video. Because like I wanted to give you some variety. I've been meaning to tell you this for a while. It's like sometimes I wish you would play the other half of that video so it shows the futuristic stuff. But
Maybe I could start it in the middle. I guess
yeah,
maybe.
but then again, I know you got a thing for the Olivia Wilde thing, so I got a new dancer for you that he's gonna blow his top when he sees this one.
Oh hell yeah!
He may
I'm
have
telling
another heart
you.
attack.
Whew. He's gonna
Oh,
have to turn
yeah.
that pacemaker right down.
That's not how it works.
Low charge.
That's my future. That's my future other wife. So yeah.
Now, we talked about hating Russia. What about countries that would think Serbia might have? I know most of the
No.
Serbian government
Wait.
would not.
I missed the question. You said other than the Russia thing. What was it?
What's the countries that would actually join up with them? The only one I could think of would be Serbia, but I know the Serbian government currently right now,
Serbia.
they actually
Venezuela.
Russia.
oh no, the Serbian government would actually defy against people that actually going in right now. It's actually a law to actually go out there and actually be part of the Russian government.
Yeah, I don't think they would be part of it, honestly. First of all, they're too far away from the conflict. Second of all, they're in rebuild. They're enjoying a good rebuild mode right now, anyway.
Mhm.
So it's like I got a
Serbia's got
friend
their
who
own shit going
I got a
on right
friend
now.
who's actually he's here, but most of his family are still in Serbia, and he was like, "Nah, they like the way things are. They don't want to compromise that." And then I got a friend who's Bosnian, whose family's over there also, and even they're like, "No, things are good right now. We don't want to compromise that." Like Yugoslavia is relatively stable, speaking. Like they don't want this smoke. Like they're done. They had their war. They're like, "No, we're done. Y'all deal with
Yeah.
that shit over there."
I don't see anybody jumping in with Russia.
No. Like
Belarus.
Moldova, the only reason Moldova will jump into bed with Russia is just because, like, I made this joke before. First of all, they're too poor to fight back. They really don't have much of a military. Like, over 65% of their IT industry disappeared. They all left the country, right? So they're low on IT, they're low on teachers, they're very low on military, and they're very low on GDP. Moldova let Russia into their country to stage their attack on the southwest corner of Ukraine because they couldn't stop them. They were literally just like, "Look, we can't stop you. Just don't break our dishes." Like I'm dead serious. They were like, "Just don't fuck up our country. You can hang out over there on the border. Just leave us alone. Do your thing. Leave us alone." And they did. Russia, by and large, left them alone. They stepped into Ukraine on the first day in February. And the first thing the Moldovans did was announce to Ukraine, "Hey, look, we didn't have a choice. They were going to attack us if we didn't just leave them alone, right?" And they were like, "If you guys want to, if you need to bring your refugees across the border, come on over. We'll take anyone and everyone in. We have schools, we have jobs, we have whatever you need, come on in. They welcomed Ukrainians in after apologizing for letting the Russians step over their border because they were like, look at it from our perspective, we couldn't stop them. It's a tough situation to be in.
You know, here's a question. I haven't heard any news from Hungary.
They're far enough away where they're not intimately involved. Essentially, like the focus. Yeah, the focus is mainly eastern Ukraine and Crimea. Moldova has sort of fallen by the wayside because Russia failed to take Odessa, which was the last coastal city on the western coast of Ukraine. That would have been the last port. They never took it. Matter of fact, they lost Snake Island, which sort of is a protectorate of Odessa. So they succeeded there. And now they have that grain export agreement. They just stopped. They were like, you know what? Fuck it. We can't do it anymore. For now.
So, Sean, do you think Russia's shit in the bed as bad as the news and media and everything is like kind of, you think that they're fucking up that bad? Or do you think it's exaggerated a little bit?
I think, okay, the scroller that goes across the bottom of this show, some of the numbers are very high. Some of the numbers are absolutely verified. Like the 15 ships, we know that. They're on the bottom, right?
Right.
The number of infantry, the number of tanks, and the number of vehicles, I believe what you have here, because I get that from the Kyiv Independent. And I always say that the victor will give out one number, the defeated will give out another number, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. So
Right, yeah.
I would argue that the Russians are shitting the bed.
Pretty bad, huh? Okay.
Pretty bad. But I think some of the numbers may be a little hyperinflated or double counted.
The other thing we kind of have to look at is that what is their media saying, because their media is saying counterintuitive, which is mainly any other
Russian media.
Yeah, Russian media is from what I've been hearing isn't saying totally the losses.
Have you ever seen Good Morning Vietnam?
Yes, no, I've seen it.
Okay, every single piece of news in Good Morning Vietnam was censored and redacted and checked before it was allowed to be read.
No, I know that's pretty much what is the Russian media. I know. I'm just saying.
Every single piece of news in Russia.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that their population doesn't know a lot what's happening, and they're thinking.
You're right. They left in the dark.
Well, the thing is, you must understand is that they're fighting two wars, or they're fighting one war on two fronts, because they're trying to show the Russian people that they need a war. That a war wasn't done by them.
Yeah, they're trying to sell them a war.
And right now, if you look at certain apolitical Russian newscasting forms, there's a 93% not vote, but percentage in favor of this Ukraine war by the Russians population.
Because the propaganda ruled.
Yes, exactly. Now the rest, but the rest of the population are believing. I forgot his political name. His name. He's in prison right now.
Alexei Navalny.
Navalny, which those who believe in him say this war isn't right, but most of them are in favor of the war. What I've been hearing recently,
I think that number.
Right, but I just want to add this one thing that you got to also remember that at this very moment they had change in their not military, but in their recruitment and enlistment situations.
Yeah,
where they went from
restrictions.
Well, not even that. They ran out of poorer regions of Russia to conscript soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the aristocrats are getting worried because the middle class is almost over.
Yeah.
And right now, if the aristocrats and the bourgeoisie most likely are becoming more worried and skeptical, that's why you're seeing a lot of rich, high
drafted
people
oligarchs. That's hilarious.
I'm being serious. Like they're right now, they're almost running out of the middle class. They officially ran out of the poorer class. They're right now in the middle class. Right now, they're trying to draft everybody, and they're even considering drafting anyone who above the age of 50.
Right.
So they're running out of soldiers.
Yes.
Well, exactly.
They're running
also,
out of
they're also
qualified bodies, is what it is. Because the thing
Well-
is they have to be careful of how
They're running
much
out of cannon fodder.
Yes,
Yeah.
because
Well, before I forget,
they can't conscript tradesmen and manufacturers because those guys need to build the weapons and tools used by the soldiers.
no,
well,
but they are.
before I forget, they're also not conscripting, but establish.
And
Yeah,
they're
older soldiers.
They're bringing up reservists.
Exactly.
yeah, they
And,
raise the ages of actives to like I think it's 50 or 55 now.
And then 2 manufacturing plants are pushing out weapons that we all know by the AK community
Tula?
to the point. Yes, Tula.
It's best.
Yes, a lot of those companies I've been hearing, based on scholarly sources, that those manufacturing plants are upscaling due to Putin's orders to upscale weapons, tanks, and possibly even reestablishing an older Soviet installation.
That I've heard. That I have heard. They're
Now-
Tooling.
they're
technically.
renovating shut down old factories. Yes.
Yes. Like one that most people don't know was a very famous one in Stalingrad
Mm.
that being re-revenated.
And
I mean, kind of like the U.S. is doing with our ammunition plants.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's almost as
exactly.
if the whole world is gearing up for a world war. Imagine that.
World War III.
well, I was
mean,
gonna.
let me put it to you this way. There were, it's either somebody in the chat can correct me on this. It's either 9 or 21. It's one or the other. The U.S. Navy was going to decommission Littoral class combat ships because supposedly
9.
9. Okay, because supposedly they're the Freedom class ones. Supposedly the Navy doctrine has changed, and they have determined that not only are the engine couplers critically just wrong and perilously expensive to correct, but the ship itself and design and the way it works no longer fits naval doctrine, so that means it doesn't have a job to do anymore. Because for it to be able to do its job, it has to pull away other ships to do their jobs for it, to get it into range to do what it's supposed to do. They were willing to write off these ships that have barely been in service. It's like, hey, let's imagine this. It's like Boeing comes out with a new bomber today, and 5 years from now, after a multi-billion-dollar contract is signed, they canceled it. That's what it's kind of like
Well,
with the Navy.
You know the real reason they're getting rid of them?
They're useless.
And they break a lot.
Yeah, they physically, the couplers break on the engines and the hulls crack. Like it's
Well, it's not a
good
coupler. It's
design.
a combining gear.
Combining gear. Thank you. I couldn't remember what that was called. Yeah, that is critically defective.
They are pieces of junk.
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are. What's funny is
know-
when they work, they're one of the fastest ships in the Navy. But they
like,
because the
they run at,
combining
like,
gears are
50
so
knots.
faulty, they limit them to 15 knots. That's nothing.
Mhm.
It's like
Oh,
a
I forgot.
driftwood.
I also forgot to add.
Wait.
Oh well.
The point of that, the reason I brought that up is now I forgot. Damn it. They're digging up the dregs of whatever they've got left. They're respinning old factories to get whatever they've got left. They're getting old men and boys conscripted, but they still have to be careful with not taking away too many tradesmen from the industries that build these things, because if those guys die, innovation dies with it. Meaning
Well-
the young and inexperienced can't go building the next missile because the guy that helped design the first one died. Stuff like that.
No,
Yeah.
I think we covered this, but I think also I've heard they were pulling prisoners out of jail cells and stuff.
Yeah,
They are
Pretty
building
close to-
dirty dozens, yes.
Yeah, and but they won't allow pedophiles, obviously, in their ranks.
Which
I
give it 2
I
weeks,
was
they probably will.
I've been
Jesus
hearing
Christ.
that I'm pretty sure most of us know that there's graveyards of tanks in Russia, right?
Yes.
After
Yes.
Yeah, most of that shit's been scrapped though.
no, I know most of it been scrapped, but a
Like
lot of
Second World
them
War stuff we're talking.
no, like maybe like T-34s and then
T-55s,
yeah,
kind of
stuff
shit.
like that, but more the ones they're using currently. The ones they're scrapping at the moment, but there's a graveyard that I've been listening to this guy called hold on, I can tell you his name while I talk, saying that on they've noticed that from now till then, from the beginning till now, some guy, his name is, hold on, that those graveyards some of those graveyards are missing those tanks currently.
Yeah, because
Like,
they're scavenging them for what they can. Like,
and it's an
they-
alarming how many are being scavenged and reused and re-outfitted.
Sure.
Dude,
Yeah, here's
most
the
of the
thing.
tanks
The
they
majority of
abandoned in
those,
fucking Ukraine.
the majority of those ones that Russia has that are in reserve,
Yep.
with how corrupt the Russian military is, have basically already been stripped for parts.
Yeah, so this YouTube guy is called Inventor Lee Wheelberger,
Mhm.
and he's been documenting a lot of he was the first YouTube guy looking at the beginning of literally hours before on those, like, little cameras that
Mhm.
like are showing the city being invaded, like the beginning.
Mhm.
And he's been documenting, he's been, like, searching all this because he's an inventor and he's taken certain technologies that has been used by the Ukrainian special forces, and he's been documenting that there's an alarming rate of skeleton and graveyards of tanks and other Soviet era weapons being scavenged to the point where they're missing.
Well, they don't
From
have like mothball yards like we do though.
No, but there's a lot of graveyard tank yards though. A
Mhm.
lot. They do have, and they have silos, which
see,
most
There's something kind of interesting about the Kubinka Tank Museum, and you've probably heard me talk about this before. But first of all, the tanks that are in the Kubinka Tank Museum, uh, every Russian tank in that museum was gifted to the museum by the Russian military. And the reason they did that was because it was, number one, it was a preservation attempt, but number two, they had a very specific and strict rule that said every tank we give you must be in fully operational condition if the event ever rises that we need to bring it back into service. Could you imagine that? Because
Yeah, Sean
got-
argues with me that they don't have an engine for the mouse, but
They
I
don't.
argue that they do.
they don't. They do not have the Maybach engine that the mouse.
They
Because
can
the one
put
that they
something.
captured, the one that they captured is actually part of two mouse tanks. It's the chassis of one. You got to remember, I did this shit for wargaming for 10 years. It's the chassis or the hull of one and the turret of a second one, because the factory got bombed and the turret blew out of the building and it was laying next to it, so they took it. But it never had an engine. And on top of that, the mouse is actually an electric tank. The engine just powered a generator. And guess what else isn't in that tank? The generator. You can't convert that to be a conventional tank. It's just not possible. Because it's like a diesel electric train. It uses electric motors, not a gas powered one.
I'm sure you could
You
figure
can't
something out.
do it. And besides, even if you did, you would be javelin bait. Because it only does 7 miles an hour.
Well,
It's so heavy.
technically, the T-34 is a javelin bait.
Right, but at least a T-34 can make an attempt to zigzag and get away, whereas a mouse is literally a 7-mile-an-hour bunker.
You could run faster than it.
Yeah, they will never, ever sacrifice that, because then you would lose the only one in existence. And it would be sort of a travesty to lose it. It would be like someone buying Marilyn Monroe's 56 T-Bird and then crushing it just out of spite. You wouldn't do it. I'd kill you first of all. Anyway, no, that's the whole point though. But like they have Object 279, which is that 4-tracked nuclear protected tank with the 130 millimeter naval cannon. They've got the 904B. They've got T62A, T62M, T54, T43, T44. They've got 3485s, 34 100s. They've got IS-2s, 3s, 4s, and 7s. They've got the KV-2, which, oh boy, you'd have to be desperate for that motherfucker, because I think it takes half an hour to turn that turret 360 degrees. It's so slow, because it's manual.
Well,
It's a manual crank turret.
You know what's worse? A KV-1.
No, the KV-1's turret was fast because it was small and had a tiny gun. The KV-2 had a goddamn phone booth sticking out it with a howitzer sticking off of it. No, that thing was big.
No, they were both equally slow.
Well, no, I mean, the KV-1 hull and the KV-2 hull is the same. The turret on a KV-1 is tiny, like tinier than a Panzer III turret. So it was like a giant body with a little tiny head, like Beetlejuice at the end of the movie when he had the shit sprinkled on him. That's what it looks like. KV-2, on the other hand, special ed. Big body, giant, oh, look at me, guys. Giant turret. Huge. Like, the British came out with something scaled down, and it was called the Matilda CDL, Canal Defense Light. And it had a turret like that. It was super tall and gigantic, and it looked stupid. But the KV-2 actually, that holds the distinction of being the hero of Rasenii. Because that was one fucking tank stopped an entire fucking Panzer division. One tank stopped an entire division by itself. And the only reason it stopped was because it ran out of ammo. Pretty awesome, actually. The entire fucking Panzer division was stopped. It stood off the whole division for, I think, a day or 2 days because it just kept pounding Panzer IIIs with 152 millimeter howitzer rounds, just blowing them to shit. And they couldn't stop it because their shells would just bounce off the KV-2. But then what ended up happening was, I think 1 or 2 of the crew members died because of the concussion of the shells constantly banging on the turret, and they just got shaken up, the human shook apart, and then they ran out of shells, and then they more or less just blew up their tank and walked away from it. They were like, well, we're done. We did what we could, you know? It's a cool story.
Oh, Sean, you remember that
that was the last time Russia was cool.
The Russian air base
Hmm?
that the Ukrainians launched?
Yes.
Apparently, that took out over half the entire jets the Black Sea fleet possesses.
Oh. Okay.
Oh!
Okay.
Black Sea fleet is a shadow of itself now.
Yeah, there's like nothing left of it. Actually, you know, the Black Sea Fleet for the Russian Navy really doesn't have a job anymore. They're not planting mines because they're not really sortying anymore. Once that trade agreement with the grain exports went into effect.
Well, the Black Sea fleet possesses land-based aircraft too.
Yeah.
Or did.
They're probably still doing that, but they're not running destroyers and cruisers all over the ocean anymore down there because they don't have a job. It's like,
well, they don't have very many of them left either.
Right. The Ukrainian Navy doesn't technically really exist anymore either. Like, they don't have battleships and cruisers and stuff out there. So it's like, Russia's like, well, why are we burning the fuel? Like, they're not doing anything with them, and we're not doing anything with ours, and the only ships out here now are grain carriers. So it's like, that's sort of over. But, realistically speaking, I bet there's a USS Seawolf very quietly just sitting around laughing at both sides going, we hear all you fuckers. Thanks for keeping the oceans clear. That's just my theory, though. Because I think the Seawolf was
Well,
there.
I think it's more or less the Russians are afraid because the Ukrainians now have Harpoon missiles.
Yeah. They started with Neptunes, and now they got Harpoons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
And also, Sean, last time I checked, isn't Turkey also giving Ukraine more and assistance?
No. They're not allowed to.
Speaks for their fucking Bayraktar drones they're giving them.
Yeah, they are buying a ton of those drones from them.
Is that from Turkey?
Yep,
That's
those
Turkey.
are fucking Turkish drones, dude.
So that's awkward then, isn't it? Because okay, let's say Turkey negotiated the deal with the grain exports. That's cool, right? Erdogan, Delta solid. Cool. Intermediary. Makes him look like a statesman. Awesome. Then he turns around and he sells drones to the Ukrainians. So then the Russians have to go to Syria to buy drones off the Iranians.
Which the Iranian drones
Iranians sold
basically commercial
700 drones to
Mhm.
Russia. And it's like, wait a minute. What is Russia paying them with? Because Russia's broke. Right? It's like, what are you paying
Gold.
them in?
They don't have
can't-
rubles.
You can't pay Iran in oil because they're like, no, we got plenty of that of our own. Right?
Gold.
And Russia...
Oh yeah, Putin's got a stash somewhere.
Yeah, but that's only going to take him so far. 700 combat drones? That's a big bill. But see, when that
took
deal
him
went
far
down...
enough.
Well, I had a theory. When that deal went down, that was the day Iran acquired nuclear weapons.
Mm.
Oh, it's also we don't know for a fact that they're combat drones.
No, they did name the drones that was purchased, and they are of a combat quality. Like, that's why they went to the Iranians, because the Iranians copied the ones that they shot down of ours and basically reverse engineered them. And then they came up with their own, domestic version. But,
Is this the same Iranians that rolled out a quote-unquote
the
stealth
fighter
that couldn't fit a
couldn't
pilot in
even
the
take
fucking
off?
cockpit?
Yeah, there is that, but that wasn't... See,
Or-
their
or-
drones wasn't
or-
100% domestic design either. But either way, right? The
I
Russians
don't
went
think
there.
they have the technical ability to clone our technology.
Never underestimate the enemy until they strike, with a Y. Bet you didn't think I was going to say that. Anyway, no, the point
Actually, I kind
is
of did.
you have to kind of wonder, why did the
I
Russians...
was banking on it.
Why did the Russians go to Iran for drones when they could have went to China? Obviously because the Iranian ones are either tested, proven, or better. There's no other reason why.
Cheaper?
No, because, I mean, the thing is Russia always knew. Like, okay, so the deal is...
So what? Does Iran have a Khyber Pass for drones?
No, they have a legitimate drone. Like, it's not a joke. It looks legit. That's why I'm saying, like,
Looks
the Chinese...
legit.
They can buy from the Chinese just by giving them oil. Because the Chinese are, like, the only country buying the oil now that India sort of bought whatever they wanted, and now they're not really making a fuss anymore. But anything that Russia wants from China, they can simply buy with oil. But they went to Iran for drones, which means the Iranian drones must do something very well or are very good. Otherwise, they should have just went to China, because it would have been easy for them to say, well, here's some oil. Instead...
Is this the same China that bought a... Or was that
Russian
Russia that bought
aircraft
that
carrier?
commercial... No. That commercial dog drone... dog...
Are you talking about that one that I saw the
thing with
picture
the
where it was
rocket launcher on
squatting
it?
down? Who
With-
was
Gun on his
that?
back.
The tank missile on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that they bought off Alibaba.
No, that was Etsy.
No,
Is
Etsy's
Etsy.
too high class for them.
No, it was Etsy.
Yeah.
I clicked the link. I'm on a list. Anyway, no. The reason I'm banging on about this is they went to Iran for a reason. There must be a good reason for it. And the other thing is, it would have been easier for them to go to China and use oil instead of capitulating to the demands of the Ayatollah by saying, look, brother, here are 700 drones. And the Russians are like, sweet. And then, like, there was never a cost discussed, right? And then all of a sudden, the Russian is like, wait a minute, we got all these drones, but they didn't ask for anything yet. I think it would be rude not to ask what they want in return. So they finally said, well, Supreme Ayatollah, what can we do for you now? And the Ayatollah just kind of clutched his hands and he says, we need a nuclear weapon. And the Russians are all too happy to abide, because number one, they don't want to give the Iranians a nuclear weapon because that makes them a nuclear power. Because the first thing they'll do is take it apart and reverse engineer it, right? But on top of that, the value of that one nuclear weapon because of the consequences of it. So Russia could say, look, we'll give you only one. Because if, they get to name their price, right? Whereas if they went to China, China's like, okay, we'll send you 1,000 drones, but you have to give us 25 tankers worth of oil. That's kind of pricey, but it's not dangerous to the world in terms of weaponry. Whereas if the Russians give a nuclear weapon to Iran and then they lose this war, now you give up Crimea and Kaliningrad, and now you're the assholes who gave Iran nuclear weapons. So now they are on diplomatic parity with all other nuclear nations, including you, Russia, right? So the Russians are like, this is a calculated risk. Do we take the 700 drones, and do we only give them, okay, we give you one nuclear weapon? Because they're going to bank on the idea that they're going to take it apart and fuck it up and not be able to put it back together. Right? But if they do...
Give them one of the broken ones.
Well, no, but see, if they do take it apart and they replicate it, then they've just become the harbinger of death because Russia gave Iran nuclear weapons. Or the capability of making them now. That's the danger.
But could that have been Putin's last fuck you? Because I
think that was Putin's desire to put a thumb in the eye to the West by giving the West's mortal enemy a nuclear weapon. At the risk of having it used against him.
Well, you heard about North Korea saying they were going to give Russia 100,000 soldiers to,
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing too.
And you gotta wonder,
where do they get all those troops from?
No, you have to wonder if
conscripting their own people.
You have to wonder if Russia's starting to pay all the enemies of the West with a nuclear device. Because that's the only thing. Look, think about it. The ruble's in the garbage. Yes, they have oil, but they really don't want to give up all of it just for payments, right? And
the only thing they could sell us are threats.
They have an overabundance of nukes in their inventory.
You know what Russia also has?
Women?
An overabundance of gold.
Yes, there is that.
You
and
also got
diamonds.
Right, but see,
Lumber.
gold and diamonds aren't an FU to the West. See, if Putin is already planning
No,
his defeat,
but they can pay for things
yes,
using them.
Yes, but how many of this... How much of the world's sanctions right now are hamstringing their ability to move such things like diamonds and gold? I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying how difficult.
Diamonds are very easy to move.
Because they're small. I get it.
They're small, and if they're uncut, that means...
But the thing is you can't move if you can't hop a plane because your sanctions won't let you fly out of the country or fly to certain countries, right? I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying, does it become so difficult that it becomes infeasible to use certain ways or certain methods of payment?
You do realize they have a city on the border with China, right?
Yes.
You do realize there's a train that goes from Moscow all the way to said city.
Vladivostok. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Look, I'm just saying, like, in terms of how do you get what you need without bankrupting yourself, right? Do I want to give up 200 million barrels of oil, which is actually very valuable, or do I want to give up one of my 30,000 nuclear weapons that I could just write off? See what I'm saying?
Or a trainload of fucking gold bars.
Right, but that's worth more than the one nuke that they already have in inventory that's just been sitting in a warehouse for 50 years.
Then Putin's not going to let the nukes out from under his thumb.
I don't think he's going to let a lot of them out. I think he can... see, that's what I'm saying. Leverage, right? A desperate anti-Western nation, North Korea, China, Iran, right? To them, having a nuke, they only need one. They only need one. Because
North Korea already has nukes.
Yes, but not good ones.
Doesn't matter. They still have them. That's all they need.
All right, fair enough. Let's say Russia trades nukes to Iran. Russia trades the delivery
What makes you think Iran
system.
doesn't already have them?
I'm just reasoning this out, okay? Like you said, North Korea already has a nuclear device, right? Okay, so...
They have multiple.
Right, so that's the thing. Russia values what they have. See, because they still have to have money left over once this is over. right? So it's like, do I want to give up 200 million barrels of oil, which is worth a lot on the free market? Or do I want to give up one nuclear weapon to Iran? Because that one weapon might not be worth much to you as Russia, but it's invaluable to Iran. They're just salivating at the thought of having one. Because as soon as they have one, they are on diplomatic parity. Now they are a nuclear power. Even with one, doesn't matter. They have one, which means it can be used. If they have 0, no deal. 1, you can have 100 or you can have 1. You're a nuclear power, you have 1, right? That's Iran. North Korea, on the other hand, like you said, they have low-yield nuclear weapons, but they have shitty delivery systems. So what's worth a bunch to North Korea? An ICBM instead of the nuclear warhead. So, once again, Russia can leverage the value of an ICBM. They can say, look, you don't need the nukes, which is great because we didn't want to give you one since you already have them. However, your delivery system sucks. We will give you ICBMs and we'll even give you the technical drawings so you can make them domestically. That is invaluable to North Korea. He would have Kim Jong-un's daughter or sister be the personal ball washer of Putin for the next 30 years if he could have the delivery systems. You see what I'm saying in terms of value? Putin can say, look, I will give you these. What can you give me in return? And he'll say, I can give you 100,000 troops. And Putin's like, that's not good enough. You have to show me your loyalty and your desperation. I want you to execute your sister on world TV. He would do it in a heartbeat. Or I want you to send me your sister wrapped in a bow as my personal ball washer and she has to use her tongue. He would do it. He would force her to do it. That's the value of what he wants and what he's willing to give. And for Russia, the ICBM ain't worth a damn thing to them because they can make them anytime they want. It's all about value and desperation and the recipient. So you're right. North Korea doesn't need a nuke. They need the missile. Russia has the missile. They have tons of them. Iran needs the nuke. Russia has tons of them. They don't have to bankrupt themselves by giving up gold, oil, diamonds, and all that, obviously, because they're going to need that later. They wouldn't bankrupt themselves for that when they can just give up one missile or just one warhead.
They also have massive stockpiles of
Currently, the ruble
Exactly.
is actually not getting any lower.
Yeah, it's reached
It's
its bottom and it's
stabilizing.
recovered. Correct.
It's stabilizing and it's rising.
Yes, because it's
So
already hit the
currently, they're actually not. Currently, mind you,
bottom. They've weathered the storm.
exactly, because right now they're up 3%.
Yeah, but okay. Saying that the ruble is up 3% after the drop it took is like saying, hey, gas prices went up $5 a fucking gallon since Biden went into office, but hey, it
No,
dropped
you're right, but the
40
thing is
cents in the last
it's
6
steadily
months.
it's steadily rising. That's still not a fact. That's still a factor.
Right, because it hit the bottom and it's got nowhere to go but up. You're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
It doesn't matter how little it is; it's still rising.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter how little oil price or gas prices have dropped. It's still $4 a gallon over what it used to be. The value is still not there, but I understand what you're saying. It's not getting any lower because they already hit the bottom.
That's only. I'm not saying it's getting any better. I'm just saying in
It can't
general,
get
like
any
it's
worse.
not lower.
Right. So once again, the value of your goods to the recipient varies.
Yes.
A nuclear weapon to North Korea is not as valuable as the ICBM delivery system. The ICBM
Yes.
delivery system is worthless to Iran because they already have something like that. And they don't need that kind of range anyway because all they want to do is attack Israel. But the warhead is valuable. So it's all about value for your recipient.
Yes.
For
Exactly.
Russia, each one of those things is a drop in the bucket for them. But 200 million barrels of oil, that's a lot to give. You see what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I can give you that many oil, or I can give you one warhead. And if you wave both of them in front of Iran, they're going to look at the oil and go, no, we have our own. But that warhead, they're going to drool like a Pavlov dog. I got to have that. What do you want? I'll give you anything you want for it, right? I mean, that would be like Scott waving Kate Beckinsale over my head saying, make me an offer. Nothing.
No, because I wouldn't give her up.
No. Listen, look, we're on air. We're going to clear this up right now. You take your Liz Hurley and you be happy with it, and you leave Kate Beckinsale alone.
I think
No,
we
I'll
had a
take both.
conversation the other day that you couldn't have that one, Sean.
Fine. Fine.
Because you said you wanted Olivia Wilde instead.
No, I don't know.
No. He wants Billy.
Well, who?
Billie Eilish?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, you've said that several fucking times.
Mm-hmm.
Lily James. The British actress. Lily James. Then I can give up Kate Beckinsale. Sure. Anyway.
Shenanigans, I hear.
I think we've meandered long enough. Unless you guys have any other stories you want to add. I thought this was only going to be an hour, and once again, it's reached 2.5. And the
Well,
viewers have been
why don't we end with this? The situation with Russia is getting very tense because it seems like we are nearing Putin's endgame.
Yes, agreed. Because I think he's realizing he can't win this conventionally.
He can't win it conventionally, and if he uses nukes, then everybody else is going to use nukes, and he's fucked. Right. Not that he cares, but again, once those inspectors check out the nuclear power plant, I believe he's going to try and do the same thing to any other nuclear power plant in Ukraine to try and prove a point, because he's that kind of asshole.
Well, okay, he can't win conventionally. I think we all agree. And the other thing is he is trying to find different ways of holding the world hostage, right? So he tried to do it with Chernobyl, he failed. He tried to do it with grain, he failed. Now he's got Zaporizhia, which is the biggest nuclear plant in Ukraine. So now what he's going to do is, at first everyone thought he was holding it ransom because he was going to turn it into a giant dirty bomb. It looks like that's not the case. Hopefully, cooler heads prevailed. And I think what he's trying to do instead is he's going to hold the European energy grid hostage. Because if
he's already doing that,
right? But
he's doing that already with Nord Stream 1.
Exactly. But the thing is he can bring Ukraine to heel if he starts taking every one of their nuclear plants and taking them offline. Because what did he say he was going to do today? Take it off the grid. He didn't say he was going to shut down the reactors. He was just going to disconnect it from the grid. The reactors will still run. It's just it's not connected to anything, which means Ukraine doesn't have power. He's going to starve Ukraine. He couldn't starve them out of food. He couldn't starve them in the north. So now he's starving them out of electricity, starting with the east and working his way across. He's already got control of the biggest nuclear plant, and right down the river, he already has control of the biggest hydroelectric dam too. So he's holding the world hostage one way at a time. But that shouldn't surprise anybody, because that's what the Russians always do. Siege warfare, right? They siege and besiege. They win with overwhelming numbers when it comes to combat. That's how they used to fight. But I mean, when it comes to crushing an enemy, like when they fought the Nazis, they overwhelmed them with superior artillery. That's why the Katyusha was invented, because they couldn't do precision. So they were like, fuck it, we'll carpet bomb. And it worked. And they still do it to this day. That's what the Grad missile launcher is. It's just the ultimate evolution of the Katyusha. Matter of fact, Scott, you and I saw this. I think Dark Tech, right? He did the video on the Katyusha and the evolution to the BM-21 Grad, which is just the same thing. It's just a doctrine.
Yeah, but also Ukraine possesses those.
Yes, but I mean, what I'm saying is just siege warfare is what I'm talking about. Ukraine couldn't win conventional war, so they tried to starve the energy industry. They failed the first time. They tried to starve the grain industry. They failed that time. Now they're going back to the energy thing because, let's be honest, Russians are not innovative people. Like, there's no such thing as new ideas, just new delivery systems. Well, they've been fighting wars the same way since eternity. So obviously, they're just going to keep doing it. over and
Yeah,
over
but what's
and
happening?
over. Well, they look like liberals.
They are getting bled
Yes,
like
yes,
a
they
son
are.
of a gun.
Yes, they are, and they're downplaying their losses, and everyone else is inflating their gains.
Significantly
But
downplaying.
okay, so I should have had the map for this, and if we go through nuclear stuff again next week, then I'll get this video or this picture. But I have a map of all the nuclear plants in Ukraine, and a lot of them are in the east, and Russia controls a lot of the east. And I truly believe that now Putin finally has his eye in when it comes to how to starve a country. He's going to shut down all the nuclear plants from the grid, and he's going to create one giant rolling brownout across all of Eastern Europe. And what's going to happen is first of all, Ukraine's going to be in the dark, right? Just in time for winter, which is going to suck. And Germany has already
Winter's coming.
Yeah, and Germany is already gearing up, stockpiling natural gas because they can't keep up with their energy demands because apparently they tried to go green and failed just like we did, right? So they're
actually
stockpiling
trying to
natural gas.
spin up their plants again.
Yes, and they're considering going nuclear again. So
all they got to do is activate those plants again.
yeah,
It'd take them less than 3 months to do.
but the thing is like, what's going to end up happening is Ukraine's going to be in the dark. It's going to get cold. The nights are going to get a lot longer. The war's going to get a lot more brutal because of the weather. The rest of Europe, because of rolling brownouts, may start pressuring Zelensky. Look, go to the negotiating table, put an end to this, so they will put your plants back on the grid, because we're getting cold too. Because let's be honest, every nation only thinks about itself at the end. But they will pressure Ukraine to go to the negotiating table in the name of getting the fucking lights on. And that's going to be
And Zelensky
shitty.
will probably tell him to go to his ass.
I would hope he would. Because he's going to be like, where the fuck were you assholes when I tried to join your boys club? Fuck you. When this war...
all he has to do is point out the fact that two can play that game.
I think the fact of the matter is if they tried to ask him that, he would be well within his rights to say, you know what, when this war is over, I'm still not giving you electricity.
Exactly.
Fuck y'all. Like, he would be well within his rights. If he really wanted to be a dick, he'll be like, I'm going to detonate all my nuclear plants. Fuck it, we're going oil and coal and natural gas. America.
Or he could say, you know what? The power plants we still do control, we're keeping that energy for ourselves.
Yeah, we're just going to disconnect from the EU grid. Like, they just connected to it recently.
Mm-hmm.
Because they joined the EU, but they didn't join NATO, because NATO's a boys club, and apparently the boys club doesn't want them in. Because apparently in NATO, you know, fucking Neiman Marcus underwear model Jens Stoltenberg is sitting there walking around in his fucking leopard skin Speedo going, I don't want to let the Ukrainians join the NATO because we have the Swedens and the Finlands. And to be perfectly honest, you can't trust a nation that still speaks Russian. Are you done painting me? I'm getting cold. Fucking
well,
asshole.
besides that, it's also a whole pay-to-play type of deal too. So I mean,
right? See, we did talk about that earlier about how Sweden and okay, you're here, so let's reason this out.
mm-hmm.
One of you guys made the argument that the reason that Sweden and Finland got into NATO so quickly is because of their GDP.
Mm-hmm.
Let's discuss what does Finland produce that gives them a high GDP? Because bear in mind, you can correct me on this.
Oil and gas.
Once upon
Chocolate.
a time, Finland?
I thought it was Sweden. I don't know.
Where's the biggest oil field in Europe?
In Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Turkey? Caucasus?
Turkey's not Europe. Caucasus, maybe.
That's debatable.
But no. The North Sea.
Yeah, but Finland doesn't have claim to that.
No, but they have claim to those
Russia
same
has
oil
claim
fields.
to that.
Okay, so the
No, the
reason for
British
their
have
high
claims to the North Sea.
GDP is a mixture of large industries such as electronics, machinery, vehicles, engineered metal production.
This is Finland.
Finland, yes.
Okay.
Hold on.
Now-
And then their forest industry. You got a lot of chemicals. You get fresh water, paper factories, agricultural sector.
All right.
It's about €2 billion annually due to the agricultural. It is.
All right. Here it is, Sean. Okay. I'll tell you why. Here, it's as I told you, it's strictly money. Sweden's GDP, 537.6 billion. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Finland, 271.2 billion.
Okay.
You know what Ukraine is?
Go on.
155.6 billion. That's why.
All right. So let me ask you this then. I'm glad you gave me numbers because that puts it into perspective. But what?
Because they're double or more the GDP of Ukraine.
Name.
When Ukraine is operating normally.
Wait a minute. Name companies that Finland have that produce things that are used around the world.
Barstelaka.
On a global scale for modern industry. Nothing, right? Like, name one. Nothing.
They're the ones that make those bipedal fucking tank things for logging.
Yeah.
But
Which are
also,
very
thing,
cool.
isn't it?
if you're gonna tell me, well, what about Sweden? Okay, I'm gonna give you a big
I'll
one.
give you Sweden.
You probably heard about it. It's called
IKEA.
Husqvarna. You might have a rifle or a lawnmower made by
Yes.
them.
Sweden.
I was going to go
Husqvarna,
with IKEA.
IKEA, Scania. Once upon a time, you could say Saab, right? So that's 4 major companies I can name from Sweden. So I'm not saying that they're
Saab
not.
made more than just cars, by the way.
Yes, I get it, but the thing is my point is, right?
I
was able to
Sweden
name-
also Volvo.
Yes, 5. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. So, okay, we just collectively named 5 things relatively quickly. Finland couldn't name a 1. Ukraine.
Well, they're there. We just don't know what they are.
Right, but if we can't just wrap it off the end of our tongue, that means it must not be that commonplace. Now, once upon a time, I did a research thing on Finland, and I was wondering how they were able to have such a good medical field and happy people and pre-college and all that other stuff. Their income tax was 57% at the time, which means what good is your GDP if half of it goes right back into the government? But that's why they
Because
have everything that they have.
They
in that
don't
country.
have to have retirement.
Well, yeah, see, but that's why they have what they have in that country.
Because the government takes after them.
It's physically not that
Takes
big,
care of them.
and there's physically not
Small
that many people,
population.
so they're able to maintain that sort of social program network. And you know what?
That's
That
been
works great.
changing because of how many freaking refugees they've been taking in.
Well,
in certain,
Yes, thank you.
countries.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
okay. Sean, I can name one in Finland that you've probably heard of.
Go on.
Probably had one of their phones at one point too.
Nope, I've only had Apples.
Ericsson.
Okay, you've never had a Nokia phone.
Nope.
Okay,
First phone was an iPhone 3G, followed by a 4S, followed by 6S Plus.
You
followed by my
tell me
12
you
Pro
didn't have
Max.
an old analog Nokia phone back
Nope.
in the day?
you never had an analog Nokia phone.
First
All right.
first cell
That's my
phone,
first phone.
2000. My first cell phone was 2008. I was way behind on that.
Okay, so
And you
so-
claim to be a computer guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm like,
Well,
what the fuck?
My company gave me one, but it wasn't mine. You know what I mean?
So the truth
But you
comes
had
out.
one.
Well, no, it was a Nextel. So fuck y'all.
Same shit.
Okay,
Oh, so
well,
it was even worse.
I had a
than
Nokia phone. Nokia is headquartered out of Finland, so there
Okay.
you go. You wanted a company. You wanted me to name a company. I
Thank
went and looked
you.
it up.
Fair
There
enough.
you go.
That works
But
for
from
me.
your stupid Nokia, do brrr. Where you at, dog?
Nah, see, but my Nextel could.
Yeah.
Good point.
No, because when you did the brr, you couldn't understand the fucking word the person was saying.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
it's
you know what?
jumbled up a little bit.
I think Mike brought up a great point. Finland only needed Nokia because think about all the different uses a Nokia phone had. You can use it as a hammer. You can use it as a brick. You can use it to pave roads. You can use it to kill somebody as a blunt instrument. Yeah, okay,
Self-defense
that's a
weapon.
major tool. All right, I'll concede that. But here's my point. Ukraine provides 30% of the world's grain. Okay? That's bread, that's beer, that's animal feed. Everybody knows grain in the world. They're an important part of everyday life. Grain. Okay? That
30%.
alone, 30%, that's 1/3 of the world's total grain.
And if we lose them, then it'll just get made up somewhere else.
No, because you see, the thing is before this grain export thing they were talking about that passed, they were talking about world hunger. They were talking about doubling beer prices. They were talking about bread costs skyrocketing. Look, nothing is going to
See,
piss
Sean's
off.
only really concerned about the beer prices because he wants October.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
that's what I heard too.
I know, and I'll tell you why, okay? Because nothing would piss off Europe faster than inflated beer prices. You would piss off the Germans. You would absolutely piss off the Belgians. You will piss off the British. You will piss off the Indians because of India Pale Ale, which I know is made in England, whatever. But the point is, that's bread, that's fucking, just think of everything that grain is used for. Okay, that's 1/3 of it wiped off the map, in a nation that's begging to join your boys club, and you told them, "We'll consider it if you get rid of all your nuclear weapons," but that'll leave
Well,
us.
I know one thing.
That's like, but that'll leave us vulnerable. Yeah, but we'll protect you. So
I
they
know one
didn't.
thing.
Huh?
Sean is not slurring his speech, though. Sean did not get any Oktoberfest.
No, he didn't.
Fuck you. Yes, I did go, and they didn't have it. I was so pissed. If anybody from St. Arnold's Brewery, which is only 20 minutes from here if I jump on the highway, can explain to me why Oktoberfest is not on the shelves, please explain it to me, because I am behind
COVID.
on gaining my 20 pounds for the year.
COVID.
No. No.
COVID shortages.
No. No, because the beer garden is open every day in front of the brewery. That's how I know that's bullshit. And besides, I'm flush with Art Car IPA. It's just I drink so much of it. It's like I want a break. You know? It's like I do the autumn and winter seasonals, and I don't do much anything else after that. Like I don't do their spring
Maybe
ones.
we'll have to start drinking Hogarden.
I do like Hogarden, and I do like Duvel, but I have to drive out further to get it.
Or how about some Sapporo?
Every time I go to the sushi bar, Sapporo Reserve, and like 100 bottles of sake. Like okay. One of these days, if I can get my friend Cola, who's actually on our server, you just never see him because he never jumps in. He sent me a message tonight, as a matter of fact. If I ever get him to join here, he's gonna have to tell you stories about when we used to go to the sushi bar every Friday after work. Because when I tell you that we stacked the sake bottles like bowling pins, I wasn't kidding. And it wasn't just me. He did it too. Like, I don't know how I ever got home every Friday night. I just don't. I do know, because like I would pound all these down and go straight home before it all kicked in. But regardless, I do that I don't even do that. I should have did it tonight, but I do the show on Friday nights now, so I don't get to do. Duvel is okay. HVS is here, so good evening to you. And he says Duvel is too sweet. You have to be in the mood for it. I would agree with you. You have to be in the mood for that. But if you think Duvel is too sweet, then you would never, ever, ever understand the joys of Golden Drac, which is very sweet. But God, does it hit like a sledgehammer. Anyway, do you guys have anything else you want to add before we all get nuked into our next lives from Russia?
Yeah, real quick. Did you guys know why the Polish Navy put screen doors on their submarines?
Oh my God, I used to.
This is a very old one.
It is.
Yeah, it is. To keep the fish out.
Keep the fish.
You hear about why the Polish helicopter crashed?
No.
Pilot got cold, so he turned the fan off.
That's pretty funny, actually.
That's all I got.
Boy.
HVS asks before it kicks in. Okay, so what I would do is I used to get off of work an hour before the dude I go and fucking eat sushi with. So I would get there, and I would put down 3 carafes of sake before he even got there. Then he would get there, and I'd order a 4th one, and then a Sapporo Reserve. And I would drink the Sapporo Reserve and half the hot sake, and then he would want to go out and smoke a cigarette. And in the beginning, I used to smoke back then, so it was easy. But when I quit, the only time I ever had a cigarette was when we did the sushi thing, because I didn't buy cigarettes anymore, and he would just be like, come on out, and he'd hand me one. I'm like, fine, whatever. That's usually when we'd shoot the shit. We got so good at this that the owner of the sushi bar not only instructed his waitstaff to leave us alone because he knew we were going to come back and pay, but he always gave us the same table we asked for, and he always had the NBA TV on when I got there because he knew I was a fan, and he was a fan too. So he was always accommodating. But anyway, before we even ate, I would get there at 5:30. I didn't eat my first piece of nigiri until 8 o'clock because we drank until happy hour ended. And then I would eat so much that I'd sober up. And then I would drink 1 or 2 more carafes of sake right before we left. And then haul ass home before that started to set in. Because I was only like 5 minutes from that place. And then I would get home and like untie my boots and then just fall over and be like, ha. So yeah, before it kicked in. Anyway, yeah, we literally, he and I alone, single-handedly put the entire wait staff through college for 10 years. Like all the waitresses for like 10 years straight. Like if you looked at my credit card statements for 10 years, you'd be like, you know, you could have bought Amazon for this. Seriously, you could have bought Amazon for this. I was like, fuck. I remember one time, I took my girl to there, and they had, and I didn't even know this existed, a sake sommelier. And he showed up, and he brought this display case with all these fancy bottles and stuff. And he showed up, and he was like, would you like to try this? Would you like to try that? How about this? How about that? And I'm like, okay. And, you know, the girl was like, oh, this is cool. This is nice. This is sweet. This is whatever. And I'm like, this is getting me drunk. And then the bill came. And I looked at it, and I thought I was going cross-eyed. So I put it really up close to my face. And she goes, is everything okay? And I just, like, flipped it down on the table. Like, yeah, baby, everything's fine. Needless to say, I had spent nearly a month's salary that one night, and I joined Team Ramen Noodle for the next 3 weeks. But you can't get nervous in front of your chick, can you? You can't be weak. You just have to take your lick like a man.
Gotta act natural.
Yeah, so I just saw it, and I was just like, nah, babe, everything's fine. Scribble, scribble, scribble the signature, and be like, you motherfucker.
I'm kind of with Hawaii on this one, though, man. That last comment. kind of leaning towards that one. You don't got to elaborate. I'm not putting you in a corner.
Nah, actually, you know what? There was one time that it got so bad that I had to get a ride home. It did happen. When it's usually just me and this one dude, like I would cut myself off after about 12 carafes. But one time we had like 6 people show up all at once, and that got rowdy. Like, they ran out of sake. They ran out of beer. Like, we drank everything. And I had to call for a ride home. Like, I think I called my dad, actually. I was like, hey. He's like, yeah. And I said, you know where the sushi bar is? He's like, yeah. I'm like, can you come get me? And he goes, did your car break down? I'm like, something like that. So, you know, it took him like half an hour to get there. And then he picked me up, and he's like, your car looks fine. I'm like, yeah. He was like, you look like shit. Like, uh-huh. I just left my keys with the owner of the bar. But, yeah, it only happened like once. It got so bad that I had to get a ride home. It was bad. But we lived on this, there's a road that goes behind the sushi bar. It's south of the sushi bar, but it's 1 block north of my house. And it's called the West Park Tollway. But we used to call it the Party Toll Road. Because at the time, you can do 150 mile an hour on it and nobody would care. You would blow right through the toll booth. It would just click your little easy tag thing. Nobody gave a shit. So, like, I would leave the sushi bar and literally just bury the needle and make that trip from the sushi bar back to my house, which was only about 9 miles, in about 3 minutes. It's just, I mean, the tack and the speedometer was going up one way and the fuel needle was going down the other way. But details, you know? It's like
Details
I
not
had to
important.
get home before I started to see double. So it was like, fuck it, whatever.
You know what the Polish call drunk driving? Tuesday.
I don't call it driving drunk. I used to jokingly tell people, I was like, I don't call it driving drunk. I call it driving awesome. But no,
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. No.
Laser focus.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, especially when you start seeing blue and red lights back there, you're like, I'm fine. Nothing will sober you up quicker than seeing lights. Like, I'm fine. Oh,
Even
it's just
them
a fire truck.
Even them white lights, them bright white lights, the LED headlights that they got nowadays on every single car, those still scare me till this day.
Oh, I put them on the T-Bird too. Yeah.
Oh shit! Is that a spotlight? Is that a look?
Nah.
Look.
No, it's like, that ain't no spotlight. Your pupils are just dilated as fuck. You are Putin levels of drunk. That's all it is. You're Nancy Pelosi levels of drunk. Fucking candlelights will blind you. All right, we're getting stupid and goofy, so I'm going to assume that we're all done for tonight. So
I think so.
I'm going to play this, and I'm going to thank you all for being in the audience and being very active for once, because last week it was not active. But then again, I didn't advertise it very well. So anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. But if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists. See if my other interests might be of interest to you. I promise I will try to be more diligent about the other recordings for the week. And if I can find a K31 bolt, or if you can find me one, hit me up in the PMs or on the server, or email me in the description below. Also, if you want to join the Discord, it's down there too. Anyway, this was the War Room. This was day 177. We will see you 1 week's time from now for day 184. Slava Ukraini.
Heroyam Slava.
And we'll see you next week.
Shall not be infringed!